is radio, man.
This is radio and video.
And video.
Yeah, so because the women like to see us.
Yeah.
You know, you want to please everybody.
Yeah, we have a female following.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, I see you rocking that short sleeve, Matt.
Yeah, we have 98% males, but on our subscriptions. But those 2% I like to.
Oh, so I really have nothing to worry about whatsoever.
Nothing to worry about. None of your exes are going to see this. Is that what you're worried about?
No, I mean,
okay.
My previous 2 exes, I'm still amicable with. It was just the last one.
Okay, fair enough.
I wouldn't be watching. I can't see for the life of me. She blocked me off of all of social media. So.
Okay, all right. Well,
hopefully we just get that popular.
Yeah, that she watches. Yeah. So welcome to the Mink and the Monk.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Mike Dopazo is in the studio.
All right.
So, let me get that right. How are you?
Great. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. Yeah.
How do you pronounce the name of this town again?
Again, with the 2% women, we don't want to give them the actual
right.
city that I live in.
Oh,
Kerhonkson.
Yeah. I should have known. Okay.
No, Kerhonkson.
Kerhonkson, right.
Right.
Kerhonkson.
And I don't know if you've been to Kerhonkson because we were reminiscing earlier, and you have been to Accord because you stayed at the first time I met you, you stayed at my parents' house in Accord.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And I was trying to remember what year that was. So if that seems like it would be 95 then?
I think it would be 97.
97.
Yeah. Because if I was 18, then it would have been 97.
Okay. Did we play that night?
I don't know, man.
Okay. I don't know either.
I think I might have been playing with T. Hickes and John Flower at that New Paltz joint, and
I always played there with them. So I just
we don't remember whether we played together that night.
I can't remember that night. I remember the next morning.
Okay, yeah, me too.
Yeah, but I don't remember that night. I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, me neither. It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
I remember other nights there, but
yeah, I played a lot of nights there with T and Johnny back in early 90s, and Carlo DeRosa used to do that.
Yeah, Carlo.
Yeah. You still talk to Carlo?
No, not in a long time.
I don't know. I think he's on the West Coast now. I don't think he lives around. Well, I don't know. I'll have to look.
Yeah, no, I see his name pop up every once in a while, like he's doing stuff.
Oh, yeah, no, I see him. We're friends on Facebook. I just don't know where he resides. I mean, Facebook has brought us all closer, and nothing bad has ever come from Facebook. It's all been good.
Right. I feel like I'm just looking at you. I don't want to leave you out.
Well, it's nice to meet you.
Brad, nice to meet you.
It's great to have you on this podcast, but I do feel like Matt's going to have to do a little bit of the heavier lifting with the personal anecdotes and memories, but
yeah.
That's one of 3. So we'll get to because we have to flash forward. Then I don't know. Did I see you? Well, let's go back to the 90s. So you're 18.
Yeah.
Where are you hailing from in life? Where do you come from? I only pick up at year 18 for you. So where are you coming from?
Like from the very beginning?
Yeah.
Oh, so I was born in Manhattan, but I grew up in Forest Hills, Queens.
Gotcha.
Till I was 10, and then we moved up to Chappaqua, New York. Chappaqua, and then Yorktown, and then I went to high school there, and then I went to the Manhattan School of Music.
Oh, at 18?
At 18.
So that when I met you, you were just starting at MSM?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a freshman.
So what were you doing in New Paltz?
Playing with Johnny and T.
Oh, okay.
Because I knew Johnny Flower, and he invited me to come up and play with T, and I think Okazaki was on a few of those.
Oh, Miles.
Yeah.
That's probably who was on the gig then.
Yeah.
So how you ended up at my house, I have no idea. I just know I woke up the next morning and you and Johnny were both. Was T there too? Did he stay too?
T was there because he said I was looking for my glasses outside, like in the grass.
Yeah. So that's, yeah. Yeah, because I was telling Brett, I had left the city for like that summer. I just needed some space. So I went and... I planted a vegetable garden, and that's something that always brought me a lot of peace. And then I was excited to show you gentlemen the next morning, and I had showed like Johnny and I guess T were out there looking, and then I remember making a wise comment to you when I finally bumped into you, and I was like, "What, you too good to? You don't want to see my garden?" And you were like genuinely upset that you couldn't see anything. You couldn't find your glasses.
All right. All right, I'm starting to get a picture of this now.
So I had no idea. I was just kidding. But I think you had slept in your contacts. You couldn't find your glass. You were with rightfully so. You were not very happy about what was happening.
Well, I was just being an idiot. I was 18, so unfully developed brain, and probably tied one on, and slept in the lenses, which you're not supposed to do at all.
You're not supposed to do that. Yeah.
And then was wreaking havoc in the morning. I mean, what else did I do? Nothing. That's what I did back then.
No, I don't. Other than that, you didn't do anything. But I just thought it was funny. How
it was. I don't know. It was just another one I can put a notch on my belt of douchebaggery. I do have this one memory of you looking at me like, what's wrong with this kid? He doesn't have his shit together at all.
I wouldn't have thought that because I clearly didn't have anything together at my age either. So
you had a garden.
I had a garden. Yeah, I did have a garden.
I did have a garden.
Not that you saw, you selfish bastard. But yeah, I did have a garden. Anyway.
So at this point when you guys met, how long had you been playing music?
Oh, since I picked up the alto sax, when I was 10, and started playing classical music, and then gained some abilities and chops or whatever to play etudes and things like that. And then I got a really great teacher when I was about 13 who introduced me to jazz.
Oh,
cool. And Miles Davis kind of blew, all that whole stuff. And then he pulled out an Eberswald once, and I saw chord changes for the first time, and that's when I was like, what's that triangle? What's that dash? Mm-hmm. What's that +9? And he was like, that's for you to play your own stuff. And I was like, you mean like make it up, And then he started playing some really cool licks and things, and that really, like, a light bulb went on.
Do I know this teacher?
His name was John Sergenian.
No.
He was just like an anthropology, social studies teacher who taught jazz on the side privately.
Oh, wow.
And somehow I think my dad hooked me up with him through somebody who met. I don't remember exactly how. But he was great. He was just a great guy and very cool, and was kind of helping me discover the world of music theory and jazz and
amazing.
bebop and stuff.
Were you, so before that like light bulb clicked on, was there any thought that you were going to be like a professional musician? Did you already have like any idea of what career you wanted to do?
No, not at all. I was just taken with the music, completely, because he would give me a couple of records every week, and he would give me some transcription books and things like that to go work on, and like I would listen to them and just become more and more engaged with and enamored with everything.
Wow. At 13?
At 13, yeah. And then he put on a Phil Woods record.
That'll do it.
That's when it wasn't just Phil Woods, it was the record itself. In fact, it was called Musique du Bois.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it was 1974, and the rhythm section was Jackie Byard and Richard Davis and Alan Dawson, and I was struck by the energy of the whole record.
Yeah.
Like, not only this supremely confident alto playing that I just fell in love with more than the other guys, in fact, for whatever reason, it's personal taste. But just the fact that they were playing original tunes and some standards, but it sounded like a jam session, but kind of not. Mm-hmm. And it was together, but not. It was weird. And there was a transcription book of some of the solos, and I started going through those, and that was a big one right there.
So you could read those, though? Your reading was that confident at that age?
Yeah, because I was going through all the all-county, all-state things.
Okay.
And I was somewhat serious about gaining a lot of technique for some reason. Like, I wanted to be able to play, 8th notes and 16th notes and things like that with some type of precision.
That made sense.
Is this boring yet?
No, I love this. I love this.
Well, I know that in the what you were working on at that time, probably coinciding with a lot of those like area auditions and trying out for bigger bands.
Yeah.
I believe I read that you got into the Grammy band.
Yep.
Around that time.
Yeah, and kicked out.
Well, okay. I thought it was going to be interesting to talk about either way, but that's even more promising.
I know.
I mean, that's something I thought about doing towards the end of high school, but I never really got to a point where I seriously thought I could have.
Did you go to LA?
Something like that.
No, it was in New York that year.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the whole thing was in New York.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So had you begun studying with Phil Woods at that point? Because that was, I believe, in the article I was reading about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Around that time. I was going into the city to hear Phil Woods a lot, and sometimes I'd go with Lauren Stillman. I don't know if you know Lauren Stillman, the alto player. He's a great alto player.
Okay.
Check out his catalog if you ever get a chance.
Sure.
We went to different. He was in Croton and I was in Chappaqua, so he was kind of like my buddy, and we would go hear music together. And he's an amazing alto player. And then my dad, as a Christmas present, because we were always going back and badgering Phil in the back and stuff, he asked Phil if he would give me a lesson for Christmas. And so Phil was so kind, and he said I can come over and take a lesson with him.
Was he in Pennsylvania, or this is New York? Okay.
Yeah, Delaware Water Gap.
That's where he
was living.
Yeah. I've been to that area, and he was always known for being in that area. So
yeah, and he also even before I took a lesson with him, he knew that I was a player, and he had me play in his high school band for his festival, which is this Celebration of the Arts festival. It's a yearly festival in the Delaware Water Gap where it was kind of a cool festival where a lot of those Poconos guys were playing, like Dave Liebman and Bob DeRoe and.
Oh, did Bob DeRoe live there?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And he was great, so cool, great musician.
Amazing.
So I was doing that, and we'd play his charts, and he would guest with us, and so I took a few lessons with him, and I was around him a lot at that time, just in his face a lot, because I was like being a little bit of a hero worshiper. But he was very complicated,
understandable,
amazing person.
Yeah.
You know?
So was there a lot of competition at that point, like getting it through the school, like audition processes, trying to get in the regional groups and eventually the grand band? Was it like, at what point were you confident you could take on those kind of things?
I just kind of aced them. I was the lead alto in the All-State, and then I was the lead alto in the Grammy band, and I don't even know how that happened. I went in to audition, I played a solo on Cherokee, and then I left, and Justin DeChocho came chasing me down the street, and he was like, where are you going? Where are you going? And I just thought I don't know what I thought. Nobody said anything to me, so I thought I was done. And then it turned out I was the lead alto player, and then there were some great musicians in that one. There was like Rodney Green on drums. Yeah. Was Mike Rodriguez? No, I don't want to start name dropping here. Is it okay if I name drop?
Yeah, that's the only thing that people watch for.
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally. They just go through, they fast forward the other stuff, and they just wait for famous jazz musician names to pop up.
Justin Kaiser, Ryan's brother.
Okay.
He got kicked out also for, they were trying to like keep us all in this like sort of field trip mode, and we were in Manhattan, and we wanted to go out and like go to Smalls and see Justin's brother Ryan and stuff. And so, it was a lot of fun. Carlos Enriquez was on bass.
Okay.
And, it was the Grammy thing. It was cool, I guess. I sprayed the second alto player with a fire hose in the hotel, and we smuggled a bunch of beers in and stuff, and then they got wise to us. And
so you're not 13 anymore. How old are you doing?
I was 16 doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you took the fire hose off because that's where
the hallway.
Yeah. That's a New York thing, right? I mean,
we sprayed the second alto player with a fire hose. And Carlos was getting like hookers into the room and stuff, and he was only like 17. Now that blew me away. I was like, I was amazed by that. Teach me.
Phil Woods only could bring you so far.
Really and he handed me off. The world of the Grammy band.
So you got kicked out for hose spraying, and
they saw that we were drinking, and
okay.
I guess they decided that wasn't cool. Justin DeChocho thought it was hilarious.
I've met Justin once, but because I didn't go to MSM.
Yeah.
But I had a student who, Gabe Schneider, who was in the Grammy band for 2 years, and I went 1 year to LA with him. That's why I thought it was LA. I didn't realize they did it in Manhattan.
Right, I think they were LA the previous year, and then it was New York this year.
This would have so this would have been 2010. Mm-hmm. But I loved watching Justin conduct. I thought he was amazing.
Yeah.
I thought he did an amazing job.
He was great. Always was great with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And I said, Justin, I'm sorry about this. They're kicking me out now. And he, I didn't mean to be one of the bad ones. And he was like, you're one of the good ones. Oh, he was like, you should be doing these things.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad.
But you didn't. So you didn't get to do the performance at the end of it, or you did?
No, I did all of that.
Oh, okay.
This was kind of at the very end.
Okay.
And then what I didn't get to do was like some post Grammy stuff later on, like play on the White House lawn or some other things they got somebody else for because
Bill Clinton.
Yeah, and they decided I was too much of a a liability for that. Maybe
Bill was getting your other friend's number, who was getting all the hookers.
Yeah, right. Bill was hanging with Carlos.
Yeah,
and getting some sax lessons from the tenor player, Sam Sadagursky, Marcus Strickland.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I did get to do everything, but it was a fun week in New York.
I guess it would have been safer to unleash you in LA than they were just worried about how concentrated, how much trouble you could get into in the actual New York.
I think what happened there was if I remember now, was that I wasn't sorry for my actions. They wanted me to be sorry. They kind of put me in front of a tribunal, and they were like, "Are you sorry?" And I was like, "Not really." You know?
Really? So you had
I didn't apologize. I think they were like, and neither did Carlos, but they couldn't find a better bass player. So, and so
you had a parole hearing to
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was funny.
Was Justin there?
Yeah.
And he participated in that?
He was just like, this is jive.
Okay. Yeah.
It was just the other bureaucratic people that were kind of like having to do their thing.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it was a good time.
Was it like a unique type of gig? Like, did it teach you anything specific having to work in that setting, or does it just feel like a normal?
It was a normal thing. We just played some big band charts, blew some solos. We went to see Rent on Broadway. It was like a field trip. It was like we stayed at the Sheraton Hotel.
Yeah, but there was nothing normal about you guys. Were some of the best players in your age, man. Like
they were.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing normal.
When
this wasn't like. I mean, this was cool. It's great.
Yeah. I just mean like
but
the way it's run, like how the set goes, and like what you need to be prepared to do and like cue. But like, I mean, aside from the playing, I imagine there's just a lot of like weird experiences, seeing a lot of famous people, things like that.
Oh yeah, there was like the Grammy nominee party that we hung out at, and I got to hang out with Paquito de Rivera and throw some drinks back with him. That was fun. He was very cool.
So you were allowed to drink with Paquito?
I mean, I don't know who noticed. But I certainly was. That was cool. He liked the fact that I was Cuban. My last name is Dopazo.
I didn't realize you were Cuban.
Well, my dad's from Cuba.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So even though I'm really just an American, but with some Cuban blood, so the Grammys was just a thing. I mean, getting to hear these guys blow solos, Sam Sadagursky and Marcus Strickland was great.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, oh look, these are real players. Man.
Yes, sir.
And I love the way they were approaching the music.
Yeah, I was amazed when I heard when I went there in 2010. I couldn't believe what I was. You hear this incredible music,
yeah,
and then it ends, and they're children.
Yeah,
like they're playing incredibly, and then they get off the stand, and they're talking about video games and barely any facial hair. It was like amazing to see. I just didn't realize. I never even heard of the thing.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was a thing at all.
Yeah, it was just the next level when you do those school things.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, but it was definitely next. How many alto players auditioned for the spot that you got?
I have no idea, and I didn't think I was going to get it at all. I wasn't even thinking about it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
you just kind of bounced, and Justin had to chase you down.
Yeah,
that's really funny.
Yeah. No, I wasn't expecting that at all.
Yeah,
but it was fun. But then, can I say I was taking lessons with Phil
at this time?
Yeah, and I only took 3 lessons with Phil. He wasn't necessarily like a mentor per se. He was just a guy who let me. I was just, he thought he was being kind, and I was just. He would take on a couple of students every so often that showed some chutzpah on the alto and stuff. Even though when I did get through the door into his house, he noticed quickly that I was not a full-fledged musician like a Potter or like John Gordon, who was like his prize student.
Okay.
So he even told me I was slow. He was like, "You're a little slow, man."
God
up
damn.
here. Yeah.
You probably said that to me at some point, Matt. When I was taking lessons with you.
Yeah, but we're talking about Mike. I mean, it's very different.
No, I mean, because I really was, and I really wasn't. I really, if you're talking about music on that caliber, I was not delivering, and I was 16 and I was pulling some licks out of my ass and shit. But he was asking me to do things like play the piano and I really had no chops. So he started me off on playing some 2-5-1 exercises.
Oh.
And then he had me write things like he would say, write me a duet for altos, write me a ballad, and write something in 3. And he wrote like a bunch of quarter notes and a whole note on a piece of paper. And he said, go harmonize that in as many ways as possible. I didn't really even know what that meant yet.
Wow.
Which is what you do in music theory in college, you know? And so that was a bit over my head. And I really had to work at that. And then I'd bring stuff back to him and he'd be like, what else you got? You know? So the great thing about him was, I mean, he was such a personality, this guy.
Yeah.
And so like complicated and funny, but also grumpy, and he'll level you, but he'll also lift you up. And it was great because it was like, you know, I got this guy Phil Woods like injected into my eyeballs and my ears like a quart of him at 16.
Yeah.
And he was actually a real pianist.
No kidding.
He wasn't like a saxophone player comping and playing the piano. He was playing he played some Chopin for me. That was amazing. He was playing stride. And the better parts of the lessons were us just playing tunes. Yeah. Because he saw that was my strong suit. If we were to get into too much heady stuff, I'd be lost a little bit. And so we played some. When we made music together, it worked. Like he was impressed with me because we could get into a groove, and he was like a pianist. He was playing like Keith Jarrett. He was like really playing.
Wow.
And he was smoking a lot of weed too, going off on tangents that I really didn't know what he was talking about. But I didn't know much about melodic minor harmony. So like if we played Yesterdays, forget it. You know, I was lost. I mean, I could play like How About You with him, I remember, and it was fun.
Oh, I'm thinking, you don't mean Lennon McCartney.
No. I meant Yesterdays, like in D minor.
D minor, yeah.
So I wasn't equipped with those tools yet.
Yeah.
So I took the 3 lessons, and then I got the sense there was really no point in badgering him to keep going back. I had a lot to learn. It was like, he taught me this tritone substitutions on the rhythm changes, I remember. Yeah. But he gave me so much to work with that, like, you know, there was no reason to sort of.
And so you took 3 like in a row, like
3 over the course of like 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but it was just eye-opening for me insofar as how, like, realizing what it takes to be a musician and what was expected of me.
Yeah. Not
just to be a bebopping alto player, or like he would say, holding an Omni book, or, you know, walking around with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine him owning an Omni book. Like, I mean, I'm sure he had his own reams of transcriptions that he had done over the years.
Nope. He said the only thing he ever transcribed was Coco when he was a teenager, and then he only maybe took things from here or there from guys, but he never transcribed solos, he said.
So he transcribed the hardest tune that Bird and Dizzy wrote.
Yeah.
At 16.
At like 16, like he said, all night drinking cokes with Benzedrine inhalers, whatever the fuck that is. You know, some kind of upper, you know. Probably equivalent to doing a bunch of lines or taking some Adderall. I don't know.
At 16, though.
Yeah. Like, you know, in the 40s.
Yeah, right. In the 40s.
In the late 40s.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because I know like his whole thing when he arrived was like on the scene, it was like he was the heir apparent. That's what I was saying, right? I mean, he was like him and Cannonball, right?
Yeah. And he had that great story about how Jackie McLean showed up at his gig at the Nut Club and said, come around the corner with me, and Jackie didn't say anything, and Phil was like, what's up with this guy? And they went around the corner, and Cannonball just came to town and was playing with like Oscar Pettiford, and he said they both looked at each other and went, oh shit. Like Bird just died, and they thought they were gonna get some work. Right. So they were like, oh no, look at this.
Look at this. You know? Yeah.
And Phil was like, so here's a guy who knows more than me, but we're still gonna try and help him. I'm like, oh, well, that's very nice of you. That's the way you put it, you know?
Yeah.
But so anyway, he was my man, you know. When I got to the Manhattan School of Music, my Phil Woods thing wasn't that cool with all those guys.
Interesting.
They didn't like that kind of playing very much. So
yeah,
you know what I mean. Like you had.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. I had the same kind of experience when I first got to New York.
So when you got there, were you playing kind of in a certain vein?
Yeah, I I was kind of in a transition, but I studied with, I don't think, you would be too young, but I used to study with Eddie Deal. Did you know? Okay.
Yeah. T talks about him all the time.
Yeah. Eddie was an incredibly brilliant guitarist and slightly flawed individual. You know, I loved Eddie. But I met him when I was probably 18 and spent 25 years either our lessons were we would just get together for 3, 4, 5 hours and play, and then have lunch and then play some more and then go home. So it wasn't about learn these 2 5s. Eddie just knew how to make music, but he didn't approach it from the way of reading or any of those things. He just made music. So for his heroes were like Oscar Peterson, Lester Young, Charlie Parker, and Django Reinhardt and Charlie Christian.
Right.
And he learned from listening to those folks. So when he rebuilt my guitar, so he got me a 1952 Epiphone Devon, which is a big archtop guitar with heavy strings. So when I got to New York, I was sort of out of touch with what was at that time. The revolution happening would be probably Kurt.
Right.
Metheny and all of those things were clearly happening. So I was playing in a whole other decade. So I don't know how Phil Woods would ever be out of date, but
I just think they thought maybe there was some corniness there and a lot of cliches and things of that nature, and they were just more. They didn't like an 18-year-old guy playing like Phil Woods there, and I was put right into the top big band. And the other guys were master students, and I was a freshman. And then, I didn't have much experience or I wasn't really necessarily very mature as a person at all.
You're 18.
I'm 18.
Yeah.
And so, you had Danny Weiss on drums.
Yep.
Great bass player Bob Bowen. You had Jacob sax. It wasn't Ogazaki. He was in the second band. It was a guy named Coleman Mellett on guitar. And then a bunch of guys like Jacob Garchick, Ben Gerstein, Brian Paresci. There were these really fine musicians, but they were all Travis Sullivan. But they were all they all had their own perspectives, and they were very serious about kind of subverting everything, And so I was overwhelmed by that because my style didn't fly, and I was immediately trying to adapt and change it so that to be accepted. And so, that doesn't work overnight, but
not usually. Yeah. It doesn't work ever. Actually. Right.
Doesn't work ever.
Yeah. It doesn't ever work.
So, it didn't help me out overnight is what I'm probably.
Yeah.
You said the other guys were subverting. What do you mean?
They were like musical anarchists. Like
they wanted to have their own style, or they wanted to be.
They
was it their style or more just a counterculture thing?
But a little bit of both, I think. But it was more musically oriented. They were down with the culture. It was more like they weren't cowing to any legendary guys or anything, or they didn't speak like old jazz musicians. They didn't, they wanted to do their own thing. And and if we played in the big band and we had to play like a West Coast version arrangement of Whisper Not, they were not about to give you a West Coast solo. And so the director was kind of not into it, but it was very exciting. And Jacob Sachs, the piano player, he was banging his elbows on the piano like Cecil and stuff, but they also knew how to play within the right style anyway, so that came through too. They were very clever, these guys, and to this day they've only been pushing everything forward in their contemporary direction wherever they wanted to. So for me, I was lucky to be around these guys. They accepted me because I was a good hang, I think, eventually. They liked me as a person, but it took me a minute for them to want to play with me and stuff. I had some work to do maybe thinking about it in a different way. I even played a gig with Danny Weiss and Johnny Flower. We were doing this gig, just trio in somewhere in the West 50s, just trio at this place. And Danny was trying to open my approach up, so that I wasn't just speedballing through bebop solos, but maybe we were all just collaborating and listening together, and maybe kind of painting a little bit, for lack of a better.
Yep.
Listening and a couple notes here, maybe a little Jackson Pollock vibe or something, and the first time I attempted that, Danny Weiss said, "Best solo you ever played." And it was the weirdest solo I ever played,
wow.
and it was the most uncomfortable solo I ever played.
Wow. Wow.
But I wasn't relying on my usual stuff.
Yeah.
And so in that way, I was kind of like, this is a whole big deal being an artist in this music. You kind of have to, have some sort of a perspective of your own and engage. And it was just, what I'm trying to say. It was just, it was like, it was all just coming at me.
Yep.
And I'm 18. I'm also, the school was interfering with my interest in the glitzy nightlife of the late 90s, to be honest with you. Okay, playing the big band was fun. Playing in the ensembles was fun. There was no shortage of great players and teachers. Dick Oates was amazing.
Yeah.
With me, and he also saw my shortcomings and was trying to help me. And
what did he feel your shortcomings were?
He was like trying to get me to play more piano, trying to get me to not play with that bowling through the tune style, maybe kind of lightening up a little bit, maybe putting some more tension in my solos, and just making it more interesting and over the bar line. You don't have to be stuck in this one thing. He was trying to help me, and I would ask him to play for me a lot. But I realized, like, I can't do what you do because you're Dick Oates and you sound like that, and that's all of your phantom busload of experience with everybody. And everybody I took lessons with, I came away with the same thing. They're not going to teach me anything. You have to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
I took lessons with Joel Fromm all the time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like he was going to show me anything. He might have showed me a couple of, like, I don't know, whole tone licks or whatever, ascending licks. You can do this over this. But it was more about, like, he's going to play that way, and you have to find out how you're going to play. There's no shortcut, really.
You have to figure out what you like. So if you like those guys, figure out what you like about them.
You've got to find your way, you know? And that was really no two ways about it. So emulating them is not going to work. You're not going to sound like them. You're only going to end up sounding like yourself.
No, you're trying to find melody that you like.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I always I don't know. When I was in New York, I always gravitated uptown and realized that I just want to play blues. So that's where I used to go, and it was weird. Like, that whole finding yourself as an artist thing didn't come into the conversation. It was just if you could please people with and with your playing and have a good time.
Yeah,
and that was more concrete to me than the other part of it.
Right.
So I don't know. That's kind of where. So it was like a couple different scenes happening in that era.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about yourself that way, because you're a master and you're a professor. And
but I wouldn't put too much weight on either one of those words. But I do instruct for a living. But I was, when I was younger, when I was 18, 19, 20, I used to. Sometimes people would say you're playing too much blues, and I don't know what that means. I just can only, like, I don't know. I like blues, and Bird's the greatest blues player I ever heard. So I kind of didn't think any. I like, if someone had said, like, I don't know what all the guys that you're talking about, Phil and Dick Oates and Steve Wilson and all those great alto players. They all love that stuff. So I don't know. I mean, but they all developed their own completely unique styles too. I was just listening to, I sent you that Dick Oates thing with I don't know if you know that record with David Berkman. Start there, finish here, start here, finish there, something, whatever that name is.
Yep.
And
they're both on that, Wilson and Oates, right? Yes.
Yeah, and then there's like a series of 3 records that he did. That's on what's the label?
Palmetto.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had all those because I studied with David in the early, when I was at Long Island University, Brooklyn campus. You could study with whomever you wanted, up to three private instructors per semester. So I was overwhelmed because I think one semester I studied with both Bruce Barth, David Berkman, and Jack Wilkins.
Oh, wow.
So I had way I always had way too much to work. It was the same thing that we would just play, you know, and that I learned a great, those are all great blues players. So so that's kind of what I gravitated towards. And I don't think I ever broke it down further than that, you know, the abstract part of it. I don't think I did. You know?
But outside of the blues, you play amazing bebop.
I love bebop, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But no guitar instructor that I had ever said what Phil said to you or what Dick said to you. You know, I never had anybody say, we just played, and no one confronted what they thought were, you know.
Oh, like tangibly what you should be doing?
Yeah, I never had that.
I got that from a lot of people.
Yeah.
Phil would tell me I was playing too much and sometimes and stuff, or, you know, one chorus too many, or he would start the vamp to something and within 2 seconds, you should be in already, you know, stuff like that.
Oh, so like your ex.
Damn it.
You're playing too long. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. You're taking too long on the break. Who are you filming?
You know, I John Abercrombie gave me some great advice once, because I was doing my master's at SUNY Purchase, and study with John, and that was amazing. And at like around the end of the year, like with one lesson remaining, or maybe even the last lesson, I was like, man, I'm gonna make you wear your instructor's cap. He's like, you're gonna ask me what I think you're playing, and I was like, no, not necessarily. Just what do you think I can? Some advice moving forward, you know, like. And he said, maybe not play everything you know.
Yeah.
When you play.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great advice.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what to do with it. But it was fantastic advice.
Yeah, know? That's what your boy Jerry Z said to me at the last session we played.
He said to you, don't...
Yeah, I know. He said, I took one solo and he said, okay, Mike just played everything he knows. So it never ends. So,
did you make Jerry comp like 100 courses on Cherokee or something? What tune was it?
It was one of his tunes, like Simone or whatever.
Oh, okay.
You know, it was just the first tune, and I was kind of cold, and I was trying to get loose or whatever.
That's what you do.
Yeah. But it's great when those guys do have something to say. I would even ask them like you.
It was basically, my lessons with John were exactly the same as what I did with Ed. John, did you ever meet John? Did you ever hang out? Did you ever play with him?
Abercrombie?
Yeah.
I mean, met him and seen him play a lot.
Okay.
Never got to know him. My boy Lauren Stillman made records with him and got to know him.
He was amazing as a human.
I could see it.
He was like hilarious and kind of almost like you described Phil, like a little gruff.
Yeah.
You know, like, but just because he just didn't have the time to, he's already been down any of these number of roads and just didn't have the time to, but it wasn't mean.
No.
But he would just call tunes. And then and I remember another thing he said, which I thought this was hilarious to me, which was, we were talking about melodic minor modes the way you were. And I didn't know much about using them, developing voicings from that particular scale. And we played, it might have been the Wayne Shorter tune, Lost. And
it's a hard tune.
It's a really hard. I think Jerry Z actually introduced me to that tune. It kind of sounds like if Darth Vader wrote in like bebop. I always thought that tune as being
interesting analogy.
very, very John Williams-ish. Anyway,
sure,
right? If you think about Darth Vader next time you listen to that tune.
I will.
Yeah, please. Yeah, wear something comfortable and really get into it. You know? But he played this voicing, and I was like, it was a major 7 sharp 5 voicing, and I was like, man, that's beautiful. Like, is that part of an entire chord scale that you're deriving that from? You know, just like, and he's like, nah, that's pretty much my go-to voicing for that chord.
That's hilarious.
And I was like, because you're surrounded by people like Miles and all these other guys who are going so deep into every, when you watch, who are some of these? I'm just, it's eluding me now that we're just talking, but just that he had one that was his go-to was really fun. It's like
just total honesty.
Yeah, I thought it was funny.
That's pretty much what I got.
Pretty much my go-to, and I just thought, okay, cool. That's if it's okay for you.
Yeah. I mean, Phil would say the same thing. He's like, I'm not gonna, you know, fly full blown out of the box like a spring phoenix. You know, everybody has cliches, points of departures, whatever. You know, he's like, whatever. You know, if it gets you to tell a story like a novel or a book, whatever, then you know it's fine. He didn't have any time for anybody. Like that's why he and Lee Konitz like were always like butting heads as like grumpy old men at the end. It was like they played a concert together in Italy with I think it was Enrico Rava. And they did some concerts and a record. And Lee Konitz said to Phil backstage, he said, "Promise me you're not going to play one of those licks when we go out there." And Phil said, "Okay, Lee, okay." And then Phil said he played a patented, like overly, you know, used Charlie Parker line right at the beginning. And Lee afterwards said, "I thought you said you weren't going to." And Phil said, "I lied." And I just thought, man, this is what it comes down to. These guys in their like 70s, like bickering over this, you know? Right. And Phil was like, he's like, "We can't all be the great Lee Konitz, you know. Some of us have to have licks, you know." I was like, you know.
That's great.
You guys are hilarious.
Yeah,
man.
that's great.
You know,
that's really funny.
Well, I mean, as far as like what you were saying about, you know, the players that you met in college having their own individual takes and hearing things like that about how people musically behave or interact. I mean, that's like my favorite thing about improvisation and any style of music that embraces it. I mean, I guess jazz, but really whatever style you want to improvise around. My favorite part of it is having a personality. You know, I love players like Wayne Shorter, who are, in my opinion, more personality than technique. Like, obviously, he's got amazing technique, but I think of that above, like, say, like, if I think of John Coltrane, I think of, like, a lot of technical aspects. I think of Wayne Shorter. I think of his compositions and his own unique sound. So, like, I mean, as far as at the, like, with time, how you saw yourself as a musician, was that, like, when you started to, I guess, have an idea of what you like to hear, or was that still years out? Like
that was still years out. In fact, I was pretty overwhelmed and a little bit despondent about music. I was because of that environment, and I had just gotten out of like high school and been in school my whole life, and there I go right into the environs again of the Manhattan School of Music. These concrete walls. And you know, getting thrown into Gregorian chanting classes, getting thrown into 20th century music, and it's like, is it Hindemith or is it Gevorgy Ligeti C minus? You know, and everybody else is kind of nailing it, and I'm just kind of like, wait a second, I need some time with this. You know, counterpoint, species counterpoint. I think they even used.
I did that.
Is that outlawed or too archaic?
No, that was. I studied it.
It's like this old, archaic way of doing counterpoint.
Lots of you're following rules instead of your ear at first for a long time.
Yeah,
you're kind of. And you fail every time.
I couldn't get it.
No,
I had to follow rules because I had no ear early on. Like,
but it's not even about you wouldn't trust your ear in this. There's too many rules that you have to follow, or else. So your ear comes into it later. But then when you finally, like, I remember once in the whole semester, I stumbled on like a bar that worked, and it does sound great. But I mean, I just studied it. I had to do it too. Is what I'm saying. And I was in New York. I was in Brooklyn at LIU with Pete Yellen.
Okay.
Pete was running the program, and Bob Aquino, Aquino.
Okay.
I think it was Aquino.
I know Pete. I don't know Bob.
Bob was the. I think they both were running it. I'm not sure. Actually, I could call Bob and ask him now because it's been 25 years. But he's an incredible pianist. Lives in New York.
Okay.
And then you could study with different people. So I studied with Bob. I studied harmony, and then Pete just yelled at me all the time and told me I didn't play enough bird. That's what he did all like
enough bird. That's interesting.
Yeah, constantly was always telling me. He would stop the big band in the middle. I played in the big band with Ugano Okegwa was in that band, and so was Nasheet Waits.
Wow.
and then we'd play a tune, and Pete would stop. Like everybody was, I would solo, and Pete would stop the entire band. He's like, "You're not playing enough beep. You're not playing enough bird."
That is so contrary to what they would say at the Manhattan School of Music.
And I always wanted to say back, and I never did. You're not playing enough Wes.
Of course, of course.
but I certainly didn't.
Of course, that's what you would say.
I don't know what else. I didn't know what else to say. I was just trying to hold.
Aren't you supposed to kind of in an academic Aren't you supposed to?
It was a big band, and they all were players. You know, so one of the funniest things that happened in that band was Pete Nasheed. I forget which tune it was, but there was a. I wonder if Nasheed would remember this, but there was like a 4-bar drum break that he had to set up the band coming back in, and we never came back in right for a few. But Nasheed would go into. It was amazing. I would just sit there dumbfounded watching him play, and then Pete got a little. He wasn't like upset, but he was just like, you gotta count, you gotta play us back in. We don't, you know, you like, I think he might have been blaming Nasheed when it was just us that couldn't hang on to where one was when he was, you know, he was just soloing, you know, it was like so Pete stopped the band. And I'm remember again, this was like in the mid '90s. So I might be, how I remember it might not be exactly true, but then like Nasheed, just the end of it, he just plays all this stuff. And then at the end of his solo just goes, that.
Oh god!
And everybody, Pete was happy, and we ended the tune. It was hilarious, and that was just his way of being like, "All right, man."
People still do that on gigs.
Yeah.
You know.
But now she doesn't do that.
Well, he doesn't need to do that.
yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. It was hilarious.
Right.
But that was my big band experience. So yeah, like it's interesting to hear how different people have different takes on how and what they want you to learn. And I mean, I had like an actual like run-in with a dude like who you know, but that was not very pleasant at all. And it was just
a Galper story.
Yeah, we'll have to beep that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Yeah, but that was terrible. That was like one of the worst experiences of my life.
Yeah, T told me about it.
Yeah. Well, I called T on the way home, very upset. Like very upset. It was very upsetting.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Not only that, it was very upsetting.
Oh, wow.
So are we getting into it?
I mean, we can, but it was just a matter of like how I'm not used to learning that way. And I don't know. I mean, it's amazing that you're 16 and you could hang with Phil saying what he said and it didn't break you. It encouraged you. You're like, I got work to do. That's because at 16, that's a young man. You're beyond your years at that point. When
yeah, I was broken a little later. A few years. It took a few more years to break me. I was still kind of like encouraged. Oh, I can do this.
You're still like spraying people with a fire hose.
Yeah. No, I was not discouraged or deterred yet.
I see so you met my father, but I don't think you played with him then.
I don't remember meeting your father.
Well, you stayed at our house.
So I met your dad.
You must have.
Okay.
Yeah, that if 90. Yeah, I mean he must have been home.
Okay.
Well, I don't know.
You probably didn't see him.
Mm-hmm.
You probably didn't have your glasses.
So it was just
that's called a callback. Very good, Brad. No, that is funny.
Yeah. Well, if I did, I don't remember.
Yeah, he was the blurry one with the beard at the other end of the house.
Right.
But
right.
I didn't grow up. I was always encouraged. I mean, I was held accountable, but I was always. It wasn't you need to do this, or like I would just go to the gig where my dad was playing, and they would say, pull out your horn, get out your axe and play.
Yeah, that's great.
And it was this loving environment that like even if you fell, if you laid it all out there, like I definitely failed a lot more than I succeeded in those, but. They were so welcoming about that's reinforcing that that's what you do. That's how you get better. Mm-hmm. And so when I got this other vibe, it was harder for me to survive in that environment.
Right.
So, I mean, it sounds like Phil was loving and gruff.
Loving and gruff.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I can deal with that as long as there's some.
Yeah.
When you feel like it's supportive of you.
He was. Yeah. I mean, I sat in with the quintet once, and
Damn.
Yeah. And when he said "Chasing the Bird" F, and him and Brian Lynch already had the dual melody worked out.
Okay.
I kind of didn't. That was one of the bird heads I really wasn't that familiar with.
Yeah.
And he was not into that, and so I had played a solo on an F rhythm changes, and afterwards people were coming up to me and saying, sounded great, and he was like, he didn't sound that good. Just shooting me down. Like, don't even think about getting. Yeah. Don't even think about getting a swelled head over that shit. Like you just played. And he was right. I mean, He still gave me a little hug, but he did say that, and he was right.
Yeah.
And oh man, and then I did a gig with he had this band called the Sax Machine. So I did a gig with him at Pace University, and it was me and his rhythm section, and Vincent Herring and John Gordon, and
man, I love Vince, man.
Yeah,
I used to go love hearing Vince.
and
play.
that was a lot of fun. That was the only gig I ever did with Phil where I got paid and stuff. But I had to play these arrangements. They wrote for 4 altos, and Clark Terry and Al Gray were sitting in too, and that was really fun. That was like the one.
So he's using you on gigs.
Just that one.
Okay.
And he let me sit in.
So he believed in you.
He did. I wasn't Potter, because
who is?
I know, because I've heard stories of Potter sitting with him and like Phil like having to leave the building. He was so upset. I've heard about that. Bill Goodwin told me about that.
That doesn't shock me at all.
Like, at 15, so, and that brings me to Potter. I went to go take some lessons with him.
Yeah.
And that was like when I got to Manhattan School of Music and I was meeting the other guys, and Rick Montalbano for one. I don't know if you know him. Okay, he's a drummer, great drummer.
Ricardo Montalbano.
Rick Montalbano,
Yeah,
Jane Monheit, the singer's husband.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
She was at school too. She was fantastic.
Yes.
And we'd hang out a lot. And Rick and some guys, when I got to Manhattan School of Music, there was a dormitory, and it was 101st Street. And mine was the exclusive, illustrious room because I was the lead alto player in the orchestra. I had my own room.
Oh.
And so, I was the party room.
Yeah.
And
nice.
They were like, all right, we're going to go hear Joel Fromm at Augie's. And I was like, who's Joel Fromm? And so I went and heard Joel Fromm, and my jaw was on the floor.
Yeah.
Because it was him and Johannes Weidenmuller, Ari Honig, and Paul Ballenbeck.
Good God.
And I was like, I could not believe what I was hearing.
Yeah.
Like, it was right then and there. I was like, I really felt like I had no business playing the saxophone because of the way he was playing.
Yeah.
And I just could not believe the mastery.
Yeah.
And he was only 24, 25. He just had just got his first record deal with Palmetto.
Yeah, okay.
Did that first record, Sorry No Decaf.
Yep.
So I was bugging him for lessons. And then that night I remember they were like, all right, tomorrow we're going to go hear Potter. And I was like, well, who's that? And they were like, Chris Potter. And I was like, okay. He can't be as good as Joel, though. And they were like, he's better than Joel. And I was like, nah, that's not going to, nah. Sure enough, I went there. And
there's no internet at this point.
There's no internet.
Yeah, so like, yeah.
It was CDs. And I don't want to say better, but I knew what they were saying.
Yeah.
He wasn't better, but he was like another formidable presence that was actually another alien species that I had to.
I saw him. He played trio with. I saw him live when I've heard him. I heard him on recording, but when you see him live, it's like a whole.
Yeah. And I heard that, and I saw what he was doing, the jumping intervals, and I didn't even think these things were possible on the saxophone. And he was so relaxed about it, like a Buddha, and that blew my mind. And then I started chasing him around the city. And one time I went to go hear him at a gig, and he was on piano. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And he was playing the piano. He was playing all these great lines and kind of chuckling.
Yeah.
Like. Yeah. And I just was like, that was when I was like, wait a second, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then Kurt Rosenwinkel was every Tuesday night at Smalls.
I saw him at Smalls somewhere in this area. Yeah, sure.
I was going every Tuesday at 10 p.m. I think for the better part of 2 years. I don't think I missed that many. It was his group, Mark Turner, Jeff Ballard, Ben Street.
Yep.
The Enemies of Energy band. And the second one. I forget the title, but the Next Step. But
Next Step.
Yeah,
that's Ballard.
Is
that Ben too?
Yeah.
Okay.
And those were super like religious experiences. I was just like,
I didn't know what I was hearing when I heard Kurt, and that's before you. This is Smalls, but it's before. What year are you talking?
I'm talking around that time, 98, 99.
Yeah. So it would have been 95, 94, somewhere in there.
Right.
And I didn't know what I was. I didn't understand what I was. I couldn't relate to it. I had no point of reference.
Did you like it?
I didn't know. Like I was unnerved by it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of stuff I have come to love, like especially like albums on first listens. There are a lot of times where I like approach something, don't like it, and when I come back, I feel totally differently about it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. That's all. Absolutely. When you see it live, and you're a guitar player, and you see Kurt, I don't know what this. It's like seeing It's not the same instrument. I don't know. I didn't know what to make of. But I did have a couple of religious experiences at that club, and one was with Berkman, and this same era with Tom Harrell.
Oh wow!
I don't know if you ever saw Tom live.
Many times.
Okay, so it was that night that it was Alone Together, the tune Alone Together, and Tom was playing. And he sounded like he couldn't, like something wasn't working for him, like notes weren't coming out. And then he just walked off the stage, and if I remember correctly, David soloed, and there was a phone booth in the back of the place. You remember this?
Yeah.
He walked into the phone booth and just stood there for a couple of choruses, and then he came back on the stage, and he just went to the microphone like he did before. And I don't know what happened, man, but like it was literally it was a religious experience.
Like, he like talked himself into like.
I don't know what he did.
He told the voices to go away.
I don't know, man. It was.
He shouted at them. He said, "Go away! I gotta go play."
When he got done soloing that time, though, the whole audience, I don't know how many, it was packed, just stood up and erupted. Like we all could feel what was happening. It was absolutely amazing.
Wow.
That didn't happen when I saw Kurt there, but it wouldn't be until 05, 06 seeing Kurt again that I realized, like, it was T and I talked about Kurt constantly because T went to
Berkeley.
He went to Berkeley with Kurt the same year.
Yeah.
But it was also with Eric Harland, which I never heard anything like that either. That's still one of my favorite. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that record, The Remedy, that double album live at the Vanguard is one of my favorite things to ever listen to.
I know, that tune is so hypnotic.
The Remedy?
Yeah.
I got a transcribe. They wrote out Kurt's solo and everything. Like I can't play it at all though. I mean, I can play it, but it doesn't. I don't want to play it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody that does that to you. Like when I hear him play it, I just want to hear him play it.
Sure.
It's
plenty of guys.
And Aaron Goldberg on that. Everybody. It's amazing.
It's not Aaron Parks?
No, it's Goldberg.
It's Goldberg? Okay.
Yeah. And it's absolutely astounding. It's by far one of my favorite recordings of ever.
Flute and chords.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Life Unfolds.
Life Unfolds?
Yeah, it's an amazing. I think there's like 7 or 8 tunes on there.
Love it.
It's absolutely. Do you know that record?
No.
Oh, it's amazing.
Absolutely life-altering experience.
Yeah.
Every tune. And it's actually Kurt playing inspired. I mean, Kurt on a regular day is bona fide, absolute stunning genius. But if you've ever seen him inspired live, like, I mean, he's always inspired, but when you see like T and I caught him one night, like he even gassed himself. Like he took his hands off his guitar and looked at them and then went back to doing what he was. It was like we were all astounded. It was so great that we had to leave after one set. Our brains couldn't
absorb anymore.
Couldn't take anymore.
So he was on the Star of Jupiter that night.
It was unreal. It was totally unreal.
He's not gonna watch this.
But it was absolutely astounding. Yeah,
that's amazing.
I mean,
yeah.
How much do you guys feel like you vary on like night to night? Because I definitely have times. I feel like it's almost like periods where I'm like, I maybe overthink something, or like my confidence just goes down a little bit, and I still feel like I'm performing fine, but I'm just like more in my head for a bit, and then I'll hit periods where I feel like I'm just not thinking as much and everything feels natural. And it doesn't feel as much of a gig to gig thing for me, but you know, obviously every night's different. Like, how consistent do you guys feel like you actually feel at your gigs?
Well,
like,
first of all, you have to be lucky enough to be playing like remotely close to every night.
Yeah.
I mean, if I am lucky enough to be playing a few nights in a row, then it becomes much easier to
I'd agree with
to
that.
get into a zone. And if I'm playing with good players and I'm getting with the horn and stuff, it's those nights where I haven't had a gig in like 6 days, where it takes me a while to get into like my version of the narcotic of playing jazz, where I feel
that's wonderfully
good.
said.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
sure.
Where it makes it worth it, where you get in the zone and like the horn's playing you, and your craft, whatever you've built over the last few decades, kicks in. You know, and you can do anything you want, and the other guys are responding, and depending on how collaborative it is, or if it's more of a bebop setting and you're leading by playing solos, which is fine. I love that.
Yeah, me too.
And just playing swing with a pocket, and it depends on how much you're playing. For me, that's why I like playing on the boats, because that's where I felt comfortable enough in my early 20s where I was playing every night and I wasn't being judged by anybody. And it wasn't like about how many different ways you could subdivide something. Like at the Manhattan School of Music, we weren't dealing with like hypotenuses and graphs like Anthony Braxton shit. And like, you know, there was a guy who wrote a tune in the big band who I'd never seen this before. He was like, play this measure for 7 seconds. And he was dealing in playing in this many seconds. And, you know, guys were writing these crazy pieces that were so abstract that it was completely a 180 from playing like a regular 32 bar tune or something like that.
This is where I've always been conflicted.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't know if this speaks to you, but there's a natural state that I'm in when I don't think about all the things I'm not doing and just think about making something beautiful.
Yeah.
So when I think about Nancy Wilson singing The Masquerade is over.
With Cannonball.
With Cannonball.
Yeah.
I don't need more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that because I'm embracing some kind of, I'm just saying that because I find it remarkably beautiful. Yeah. And I want to do that. Mm-hmm. Like I want to feel that way when I play. So when Cannonball doesn't even play on that tune.
Oh, right. He doesn't.
But when I listen to Cannonball play anything, like, you know, I was just listening to Sack of Woe the other night, and there's a couple different. I didn't realize there was a version of him playing that in the '70s, which is like, do you know that version? It's like more of a funk kind of version. And,
maybe
is that on Phoenix?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I do know. And
I never checked that record out before, but that is it.
I only know that record because my first interview I ever did was with Vincent Herring, and I asked him what Cannonball I should dig into.
Oh,
and that's what he told me.
Well, he's the guy to ask.
Yeah, he's the guy to ask. So Vince's first album, I can't even remember the name of it, but Rodney.
Folklore? No.
It's got a picture of him, and it's like red on the cover.
Did you see Rodney Jones?
Rodney Jones is on it. James Genus.
American Experience? No.
Is that,
there's a few early ones. Dawnbird.
That's not the name of it.
Okay.
But they do one of Rodney's tunes on it.
Okay.
And I just can't remember the name of it either. However, but those guys, when I listen, I don't have to think, even hearing Cannonball play something that's whatever, I don't have to, I just know that it's beautiful. So I relate to the sound of it. And I know all of these other brilliant musicians do as well. It's what it's all about. But the heady part of it, if it goes, like, I've never been able to think my way to the promised land. It's always been about the feel and the beauty of something.
Okay.
So I've always been, when I was in New York, I was constantly uncomfortable because I don't like, I just wanted to play like George Benson.
I know, man. And it was, and these guys a lot of them were anti-swing.
Yeah. And it was so, like, I didn't know, like, I moved out of the city, and then I did a gig when I first got up here. Maybe we should switch spots. You can ask me the questions, and I'll just talk the whole time. Does that work for you?
Sorry, are you being facetious?
I'm totally. Yeah,
okay.
I'm sitting here talking. I should be talking.
Why? Yeah, it's great.
But when I first moved back up here, I did a gig with Dennis McCrell.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Dennis.
I've heard you mention him, but
I'm saying like I know him, but I just know his playing.
Yeah. I mean, he's an unbelievable drummer. He was he was the MD for the Count Basie band for like at least a decade.
Yeah.
When he did a master class when I was at college, he was at that point leading the McCoy Tyner big band. So anyway, we played. I never felt so comfortable in my life playing with him. The pocket was absolutely amazing. And then we ended up playing a Meters tune. And then we got to talking, and it was just nice to talk to a dude who was just loved music and was not, there was nothing, it was just a natural state there was no vibe at all. Like, and it was very, and I remember talking to him, and he was saying that he sort of reinforced to me that the things that I related to as far as the music was concerned was kind of changing in New York in the 90s. He said, because he left, I got there in 92, I guess, and he had left in the 80s. And he said it was kind of changing and just kind of, it felt good to hear that, because I didn't ever feel comfortable south of 125th Street when I go to hear people play. But I would get like uncomfortable with vibey stuff. Like I just wanted to, I don't I just wanted to play music and experience something that felt good. So I don't know if this is coming out right, but
it's coming out amazing because your playing is so strong now. When we would play at the Big Bang or Big Band,
the big band,
I would go play this gig, and I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. I really wanted to hear what Matt was going to play, and I knew that when the band would play the melody part of the tune, and it would open up for solos, everybody would be just getting off their ass, and there would be that split second where people would be getting up the nerve to stand up and take the solo, and Matt would just jump in every time and be the first solo.
I took every solo on every tune.
Yes.
No, I'm kidding.
But you did. You were like, fuck these guys.
I had to wait for Robert to give me the cue. I never did it without Robert.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you were in front of me.
Okay. But I was like, should I get up and play? It's going to be embarrassing if two guys stand up, because then one of us is going to have to sit back down. And this guy would just, boom, I'd hear one note, and then everybody knew that it was over. But your solos were captivating.
Oh, thank you, man.
And just a mastery of the language and bebop and swing, real swing, no bullshit. I mean, it was always a pleasure at the Big Bang. I would look forward to that. My mom used to, when she would come see it, man, she would just,
Well, I felt the same way about your solos, though. So
but I was playing second tenor, and I'm an alto player.
But it was still creative, man.
All right, I'll leave you two alone.
Yeah. Oh no! I just got a glimpse of what this sound is like.
No, but it was that, as far as like groove is concerned, that's not something I ever thought about in an intellectual way. I know things that I hear that I like, and I know when I don't like. Doesn't mean I'm right. I just don't, when I'm attracted to or not attracted to. But in New York in the 90s, there would be people who would talk about swing, and I'm like, I have no idea what we're talking about. Like they would talk about it and break it down, and I just wanted to play with people that had pocket. That's all I could say. Like, so the people that I ended up playing with were all in organ clubs in Harlem. That was what I was attracted to. So, but I would go down to Smalls and sit in and feel scared, like from my neck to my toes. You'd hope that you knew the tune. You hope that you could comp for 30 horn players before, and then nobody wanted to give you a shot to play anyway.
Yeah. And they might be like Conception.
It was totally yes. And then the dude who just blew an amazing solo on the alto would go and sit on the piano and play better than anybody on that too.
That would happen. That was always
that happened a lot.
Yeah, it'd be like J.D. Allen or like Zayd Nasser or Chris Byers or somebody. They'd sit at the piano and
yeah. And so I always was uncomfortable, but I'd actually people would talk to you about what you should be doing, and that it didn't have anything to do with the way I grew up and the way that I was embraced as a young musician, which was play. Let's play.
So you didn't have any interest in like all those esoteric things that people were kind of throwing at me at the school.
I don't. If it was good, yeah. I mean, that's completely my judgment. So I don't mean that to be like condemning it. I just I couldn't relate. No, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. These guys, they didn't want to go into a studio and play tunes and play the head solos, trade eights, take it out. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to subvert that as much as possible because it had all been done before, and and then it was all about playing original music and stuff, or kind of making standards sound ugly, even in a way, like kind of really beating it up and stuff. And but it was hard, but it was fascinating to be around all that, because I still loved going to Augie's and hearing Fromm just play like a ballad, really simply and poetically.
When I put on, like I just was listening to it yesterday, every once in a while I'll go through that Betty Carter, Ray Charles album. Yeah. And every time we say goodbye, I still don't need any more than that. You know what I mean? Like I can put that on it and I feel full to the brim with beauty and then I went and put on Ray Charles's Christmas album, and he sings that Spirit of Christmas, which was in the movie A Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah.
And you know that movie?
Many times over.
Right. So when he goes into the attic and he gets locked in the attic.
Of course. And he's crying and he's like
he's watching the old videos.
And that tune's playing.
And then like that's how that tune is. Ray is so emotionally deep that I can go through every decade of my life with that in the background, and I don't need more than that. So I don't know if that's a shortcoming, but but sometimes you feel when I was younger I felt like it was,
Me too.
The cats that, that you would go that were like on top of that scene, I just couldn't. I couldn't relate to the humanity of it.
Right.
And that's what I was looking for. And I felt lonely sometimes.
Yeah, that's why I was happy to have my friend Rick Montalbano, because he was coming from upstate in Albany, and his dad's a piano player, and he was playing a lot with like Nick Brignola, and it was all like swing gigs and stuff, and he was swinging his ass off.
Nick was a bad dude. Well, because Rich and Jeff, right? Weren't those Rich Syracuse and
Siegel?
Jeff Siegel,
yeah. And Rick, my friend Rick, he was kind of with me insofar as he was like, he felt so pressured to be creative because he was around all these creative people that were doing all these other things. And he was like, man, I just want to, I remember he said, I just want to hear Art Blakey's ride cymbal all day, man.
That's right.
And so we were in cahoots that way. Yeah. I just wanted to hear my guys and, my favorite sax players and stuff like that.
Yeah, man.
And so there was that sort of dichotomy, and there were camps, there were in cliques, and there still are in Manhattan.
Sure. Yeah.
Like a couple of years ago, I was playing with the Fat Cat Big Band, right?
Okay.
Do you know them at all?
Is it at the Fat Cat?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if Greg Glassman always played at the Fat Cat, so I don't know. if he was in that.
Greg was playing there all the time. He probably subs on that band. He wasn't there when I was doing the Fat Cat. I was subbing on the Fat Cat Big Band. This guitar player, composer is the leader. His name's Jade Sicilian.
Okay.
And he's an amazing arranger, composer, and his tunes are not easy. And so like Frank Lacey's in it, and Stacy Dillard, and
yep.
So we'd go play these gigs, and I remember one time I was playing and met Miles Okazaki and Dan Weiss came down to play chess. They're big chess heads. Mm-hmm. They play chess music, in fact. And I mean, it's great. I don't know if you heard their latest duo record, The Memory Palace. It's unbelievable.
No, I don't know.
Very, very sophisticated, heavy.
I'll have to check it out.
It's really something.
He gave me Miles's book,
The Fundamentals of Guitar.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't. That doesn't make any sense to me. I understand it's heavy.
Me either.
Okay.
No, I'm only kidding, but yeah, I mean, it's a
piece of work, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
That's where that guy's at.
Yeah, no, he always was like, I mean, I think I met him once because him and Johnny, didn't they live together, or they were close?
Very close friends.
So I met them. Yeah. This is Johnny Flower again.
Bass player. Yep. Whom I miss, haven't seen him in forever.
I saw him but 5 years ago.
Okay.
He was in town at Applehead Studios for a night, and I went over and said hello.
Cool, yeah. What was I
Miles
they came to play chess, and I went over to say hi with them, and hi to them, and it was interesting to me. The point is, I think they were coming from the 55 bar, mm-hmm. and Danny was like, "Who's that drummer? He sounds really good." I'm like, "That's Phil Stewart. That's Grant Stewart's brother." Like, you guys have been playing across the street from each other for only the last 20 years. Or whatever. And Phil Stewart was like, I was like, hey, Danny Weiss? And he's like, no. And I was like, what? And then the guitar player, Jade, I was like, this, Miles kind of came over to say hello. And I said, this is Miles Okazaki. And he went, I don't know who that is. And I'm like, what? I know who all you guys are. I listen to all you guys. Yeah. So there was always like these camps. Like the 55 bar is like Dave Binney's world. And Donnie McCaslin, and like 90s crisscross vibes. Yep. And then you had Smalls and Fat Cat, which was like bebop and Tad Dameron tunes and things like that, and they didn't really know each other. So it was very divisive, which made it more confusing to me because I didn't know where I belonged.
And it was uptown, and we were playing blues, mm-hmm. or singing gospel too, because I played with one of them was Jimmy Preacher Robbins, and he used to sing. Great singer, probably a better singer than organist, but he could totally light the room on fire with one chord and one groove, and it would be amazing.
Did you play with Celino Clark?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, I'm not regularly. I was regularly in Preacher's band, and we used to play between Showman's, Wells, which was on I think 138th, and then. There was the lickety split, and anyway, it was blues all night long, or some rhythm changes, mm-hmm. or standards, but done in that Brother Jack, George Benson, Sonny Stitt.
Yeah, that was your milieu.
That was what I wanted. So I just, there was no talking about it. There was no we just played tunes, mm-hmm. and I always just felt at home there because that's the way I grew up.
Yeah,
and there was support. And the other place was St. Nick's Pub.
Yeah.
Where Patience Higgins ran the session. I don't know if did you know Patience?
I don't know who he is.
Yeah. He was a tenor saxophonist. He used to run the, anyway, they were just like, if you could play, they would encourage you, and it was fun. That's still what I would just want to do.
Yeah. But, you know, Dick Oates would tell me, you can't just go out there and play a foggy day, man. You can't just go out there. You know, you have to write your own tunes, and you got to have your own stuff. And, you know, just when I was studying with Dick Oates was when he just made his first record as a leader for Steeplechase. And then he started making all of them next ones in succession with all original tunes, quintets, quartets with Bruce Barth. And you know, Joe Magnarelli's. And so he was just finding his musical voice after all those years, playing with like the big bands and Red Rodney and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was like not ready to write my own tunes and record them at all.
Okay.
In fact, after, and I hope I'm not jumping the gun here and talking about myself too much, but
well, we are interviewing you.
okay. The we might have to cut out the part where we were like, you know, sounding a little. I don't know what I sounded like there, but that might be an edit.
You sound very fond of each other.
That might have to be an edit. I think my mom came into it at one point. She was at a concert. That's all. She liked it. All right, it's not a big deal. So. Come on, we're nerdy jazz musicians. We don't have to be that cool all the time. It's okay.
It's true.
But I left the Manhattan School of Music after 3 semesters because I was just, I don't know. I'd had enough. I got put on academic probation because I was really partying a lot and hanging out in downtown, uptown, east to west,
in town.
In town. I was so interested in hanging out because I was a kid, man.
Yeah. And it's a scene.
And and going to hear freaking Paul Motion Electric Bebop Band at Sweet Basil. Then going to hear Omar Avital's band with Joel Fromm, Grant Stewart, and Charles Owens like playing amazing at like 2 a.m. And like,
was that at Smalls?
Mm-hmm. And you know, there was so many spots like Angry Squire was still there, I think.
Wait, is Omar? That's the bass player.
Bass player, yeah.
He had a band that was like I used to go every week to hear him play.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And he wrote all the tunes. Yeah. And that's the first time I had heard Myron Walden.
And Myron was in it too.
Myron was
like screaming alto playing.
I didn't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
But I used to see him
screaming and then also going, woo, like at his own playing, like, woo. And like I thought that was weird. I thought I'm never gonna do that, but then I don't know what that's about. But or I saw that tenor player Eli Djibri did more screaming during his solo than actual playing.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
Israeli tenor player.
Okay.
Anyway, but off topic I went. But I left the school because I was done being in a classroom trying to figure out music in an academic setting for a while, and I thought, why not? Why not take a break?
Yeah.
I didn't have an interest in completing a bachelor's degree for whatever reason. I don't know what it was. It just was like, let me out of here for a minute.
Yeah.
And so I banged around for the city for about a year, and I was just doing like jobs because throughout this whole time I needed money too.
Yeah.
I was working.
Understand.
I was working a job backstage at the Manhattan School of Music as a stagehand, which was pretty cool.
What was the guy who ran the studio then?
His name was Tyler.
Oh, okay. It's different than when I was. Okay. There was a guy who did that job for a long time that a friend of mine also worked with. I just can't remember his name. It wasn't Tyler. But,
okay.
Yeah.
You know, being a stagehand and like setting up the operas and painting percussion cabinets and things because I needed money too.
Yeah.
And
it's always the dilemma in New York.
I know. I mean, I sat in with Ballenbeck a few months ago in Queens. And I was telling him how much I loved when he played with Fromm at Augie's, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I remember when Joel called me for that." He was like, "Hey, I don't know if you're into it, but I'm doing this gig at Augie's with Johannes Weidenmuller and Ari Honig, and it pays $90." And Paul Ballenbeck was like, "Oh, 90, that's not bad." And Joel was like, "Well, 90 for the band." and that just hit me a few months this past summer. I was like, all that amazing music I heard, and you were making like $15, like. You know, and Joel was passing the hat around, and the music was like off the charts, amazing. And that, you know,
I used to live just right around the corner from there. I used to go there a lot.
Yeah. And so for a year, 90. I just kind of bummed. Yeah, 90. That's what he said. No, I'm not kidding.
It's absurd.
Yeah. So I bummed around. I was working like messenger jobs, driving jobs, video stores.
I was a messenger too.
Yeah.
Foot or bike?
Both. Yeah.
You had to take your life in your hands as a bike
I did
messenger.
as a bike. I did a few times. I got run over a few times.
I mean, it was so scary.
Yeah, it was.
It was. I did mine on foot. I only did foot. I used to walk like 7-8 miles a day.
Yeah. Eventually, I moved into the printing company and became a job tracker so that I didn't get killed.
You worked at a printing company?
Yeah.
I worked at a screen printing company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Right on 21st Street.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
59th. 57th.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But it was liberating to be out of school for, the academic world for a minute, and it was probably frowned upon because everybody else was still plugging away, and I felt weird about leaving. Like
Leaving the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after about a year, I thought, let me go back, but let me go to the new school. So I did a semester at the new school, and there were a lot of great players there.
What year is this now?
2001.
Okay.
That sinister year.
Did anything else happen in 2001?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And so that was crazy because I was in a different headspace. And there were some other players, and it was like Reggie Workman, and
I auditioned for Reggie, but that would have been 92.
Okay. He was great. I was in a class with him, and Jacob Bro was in it.
Oh, okay.
Danish guitar player. Do you know him?
Mm-mm.
Oh, he's a great player. He's not doing the kind of like ethereal music he's doing now, but he was crushing bebop in all 12 keys and all that, and it was amazing. What I remember about that was Robert Glasper. So I was in Reggie Workman's Coltrane ensemble with E.J. Strickland on drums, and I'm 20, and I'm not too sure of myself, at all. Whatever. I was trying to eke along my bachelor's degree for whatever reason.
Yep.
And have some structure. And Glasper would come in, and he didn't play piano. He played drums and vibes. And when he played drums, his sole motivation was to throw everybody off. Playing like hard ass Coltrane tunes. I mean, I tried to play Countdown, and he kept flipping the beat around on me, and the bass players again was that Swedish guy Johannes Weidenmuller. He was flipping around that time too, laughing his ass off. It was hilarious. And at one point I had to stop because I was so lost. Yeah. And I saw that that was what they were trying to do, not make music with me, but get me. Right. And I stopped, and they all were laughing, and Reggie kind of was snarkily laughing, and he went, "What are you gonna do now, Dopazo?" So I thought, all right, this is my last semester here. So I left the new school. Yeah. I did take some cool on-camera acting classes there, though. Damn, that was a lot of fun. Okay. I had a crazy obsession with learning about acting technique.
I did too.
Did you really?
Yeah, in college, sure.
Yeah. Did you ever take any classes or anything?
In college, yeah.
Oh, cool.
I thought that it was. I definitely was considering doing something along those lines. Yeah, man. So I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah. I took some classes at HB Studios on Bank Street. Okay. And it was like technique and scene study.
I did a scene study thing, yeah. And I had a good friend who was also an actor, so we used to hang out and do scenes together just for the hell of it.
Yeah. Yep. And and when you're in Manhattan in the late 90s, I mean, I was a big like fan of. I was obsessed with all the films that were coming out, and especially the independent films. And you would see a lot of indie film actors walking around all the time. Man. I was always bumping into like those actors. Like I'd go to like art galleries and drink the free wine on the Lower East Side, and there would be like actors there. There would be like Dennis Hopper or Dustin Hoffman or Kevin Corrigan. Or
I never saw any of those dudes.
I saw these people, and some of them I talked to, some of them I didn't. Some of the lesser known actors I could give them lines to from their films, and they'd be like, "Oh, you know my shit," like from that whole 90s indie wave. So yeah. I mean, Manhattan was exciting enough for me to be around than just to be at the Manhattan School of Music.
My day job in Manhattan was working in a health food store. So I used to. There's an actor who used to come. If you know him, I would be astounded. His name is P.J. Brown, but he's the cop that gets beat up in the Matt Damon Ed Norton movie Rounders. And he was, before Rounders came out, this dude, he used to come in with his wife and his daughter, and I used to wait on them all the time. We used to talk all the time. And then I was like, what are you doing? Because he's a professional actor. So I went and saw him in a play with, what's her name? From my cousin Vinny. She won
Marissa
he was in a play with Marissa Tomei.
Oh, wow.
And then he gave me tickets to that. And then he was on an episode of the Cosby Show. So I went and saw the filming of that, and was with Madeline Kahn
wow.
Got to see her live. And then he, just when I was leaving New York, he did that movie, and I got to see that. So I remember doing, kind of hinting at his lines after I saw it when I bumped into him. But there was a lot of people like that, like you said. I didn't think about it, but then I just remembered that this guy was just a dude who lived on the Upper East Side.
Right.
And used to come in and buy organic broccoli.
Oh, right. But cops don't get beat up around Rounders. The cops beat them up.
Oh, you're so right. I'm sorry.
So I'm trying to think of which cop.
No. He's the cop that's sitting at the table and he grabs.
Oh, that scary guy.
That's PJ Brown. Yeah.
Wow.
He grabs Ed Norton's hand. I caught a hanger.
Caught a hanger, sir.
Sorry.
A what? A hanger? A what?
Yeah.
He says you're dealing off the bottom of the deck of the car. That's exactly what a hanger is.
Yeah. And as he makes him pull the car, he says, "If this car doesn't help you,
well, listen to what you have to say."
It's a great movie.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, and that's him. I don't know what else he's gone on to do because I left New York that same year.
Was he that intimidating in person?
No, he was the sweetest.
It's amazing the way he's studying when Edward Norton's dealing, and before he grabs his hand.
Totally. Yeah, I watched that scene a lot.
Edward Norton's like, "Don't get so agitated."
Yeah. So I didn't think of that, but it's funny.
He's bass stealing.
He's bass stealing. That's what it was. It's so funny that we had the same. And I left a year later. So like when you were doing the new school, I had already moved up here.
Okay.
So
let's superimpose us saying the hanger together over us giving each other props like a bunch of idiots. Yeah. Okay. Let's cut that over that. Make us look cool.
Yeah.
For the 2%.
The 2% of the ladies that are watching.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I did the new school, and then can I move along with my trajectory of my life?
Yes, please.
Well, I feel like I had a question in there. We covered so many things.
Rounders. It's Matt Damon, Ed Norton.
Directed by John Dahl.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Red Rock West, The Last Seduction.
Good God.
What were we saying just before that? Oh, man.
I don't know.
Bass stealing? Poker?
No, your last semester to new school. So where did you go? You were saying where you were going from there, but I don't know if that's what.
You had a question, man.
Well, I mean, one thing I guess I was thinking about before on that side of things, like especially when you said like Phil Woods didn't necessarily believe in transcribing. You're talking about not always feeling like connected to the scene or like how everyone's kind of trying to conceptualize music. I feel like it's really hard to be objective about your own development. Like, I mean, at that time, was there any particular like checks that you like? Were you enjoying getting like reality checks at that point, or was it all just like drudgery when things like that would come up? No,
because I was young and I was full of piss and vinegar about everything I was doing. I wasn't despondent about anything. I was still playing a lot of gigs. Johnny and Miles and I were playing a gig at an oyster bar a few nights a week on 21st Street. Just trio.
Oh, nice.
Jay used to come by and stuff.
Jay Anderson.
Yep. And or he came by at least once. Yep. He didn't used to come by. I think he came by once.
Yep.
To see Johnny because Johnny was studying with him.
Him and Johnny are very close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was playing a lot of gigs, and I was going to the jam sessions at Smalls, and Fromm was very nice. Joel, he would let me sit in and stuff a lot. He would always let me sit in for like nice. The last tune or the last two tunes. So I was always playing. I wasn't like dropping the whole thing. I wasn't like trying to proactively push myself into music and a career like some of these guys who've done very well with it, like a Miguel Zenon or somebody like that. Or I wasn't doing that. I was just kind of a screw up, kind of like I was just
Miguel Zenon. I don't know who that
Miguel
is.
Zenon.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's a Puerto Rican saxophone player. He won the McCarthy Grant.
Oh, shit!
And he's got a lot of records, and his music is insane.
Wow. Okay, I'll have to check him out.
Alto player, yeah.
Wow.
And he was at the Manhattan School of Music too.
I was gonna make a joke about his name, but now I'm not. That just sounds like a lovely IPA. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't say that when I haven't checked.
He's not going to be watching this. He's busy writing suites for the San Francisco Jazz Collective or something.
Wow.
But I just saw guys that were taking matters into their own hands, and I was more of like a have a beer, play a song kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wasn't ready yet to do anything substantial. and I knew that it comes with experience. I mean, you innately kind of know that, you know.
Yeah.
How much gravitas can you bring to something as complex and deep as jazz music when you're 20? I could hear it in my sound. I could feel it in my sound, and I knew the trajectory again of saxophone players that I listened to from the inception of their recordings till the later years, and I saw a huge growth, and because it's all their lives going into their damn horns and stuff. So I was kind of aware of that. I thought, let me go out and have some experiences, you know, and because I was into all of the arts, you know, I did not want to sit at home and practice like intervallistic concepts on the saxophone all day. You know, I just wanted to hang out and stuff. A little too much I hung out, you know. And there was a lot of drinking and there was some drugging and stuff, but it was all a lot of fun at that time because I think I could do that when I was in my 20s. And
sometimes you lost your glasses.
Sometimes I lost my glasses. I was a pain in the ass, a nuisance. Johnny Flower, any of those guys will tell you what a fucking pain in the ass Mike Dopazo was. I mean, you know, I'm not a thought right now, but back then, if they were to be prompted, yes, he was a nuisance. You know, like I was maybe even unethical in some certain. I mean, I'd like to go back and undo some of those peccadillos, but you know, but I don't know. I was having a lot of fun, so it wasn't until I got on the cruise ships that I started to develop my sound because I was playing every night.
But did you knew what you liked before that, but was it just becoming clear what you were going for, or what parts of the learning process you valued? I guess what was a example of a milestone where something became clear, like a way you looked at one of the fundamentals you were practicing, or where you kind of found what you were looking for in what you were practicing?
Oh, that's a tough question. That was all very gradual. I was really into the independent sort of jazz crisscross and steeplechase records of the 90s. The stuff that Alex Sipiagin was doing, and Dave Binney and Potter. Definitely a lot of Potter, all the Potter. Mm-hmm. I became a very big Chris Potter fan, and I took some lessons with him, and that was amazing. And so I was transcribing him and trying to understand, because he had such a monstrous technique on the saxophone. Who wouldn't want to try to do what he was doing? The way he played, his sensibility started creeping into my playing a little bit. So I became this amalgam of Phil Woods and Chris Potter, and
not horrible.
Not horrible. I don't know, man. But any musician with a keen ear will just be able to decipher that right away. Chris Potter, Phil Woods. But so that sort of type of aggressive sort of playing, they were playing in it with a different time feel. Chris Potter wasn't playing with the time feel like Cannonball or Charlie Parker. He was playing on a different side of the beat almost, and it was a different way of playing time that I hadn't heard before. Like
in his phrasing, or in the way he's hitting around the beat?
Rhythmically, his phrasing over the bar line, the way he was attacking things, and a personality. It was very, very original sounding to me.
Because,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was also the way the amount of notes he's putting in those phrases.
And, it was incredible. And I'd hear a line, I'd have to transcribe it. There was an Al Foster record, I remember, with Dave Kokoski and Doug Weiss and Potter, and there was some solos he took on that. I had to write that stuff down, and I will still grab that like Abercrombie, I know when I'm grabbing from that, one of those transcriptions I did, so those in the late 90s, I think I was trying to get away from playing Charlie Parker, Phil Wood stuff, and listen to all of the guys that were hot on the scene. Is that a cool thing to say? Hot on the scene, everybody. Adam Rogers, Keith Jarrett. I was, those guys that made High School Music got me into Keith Jarrett. And so I was trying to think about the way he plays and stuff. So I was getting more into that style of playing, where it was more modern, late 90s, hard bop, original, Dave Holland Quintet, Seamus Blake was a big influence. A lot of tenor players more than alto players for some reason. I wasn't crazy about a lot of alto players. I was never crazy about like the Gary Bartzes and the Charles McPhersons for some reason. I was more into the tenor players like Fromm and Potter and Seamus Blake and Mark Turner and Joshua Redman and all of the Kevin Hayes. All of these guys of that generation got me excited about playing jazz, and I wanted to play like them, you know.
But do you feel like you got closer to that goal? Like, do you think a transcription brings you any closer to that than, like, you play a transcription, you find something in it that you like, that you want to incorporate into your voice?
Yeah.
But, like, does that get you closer than, like you said, getting together with your friends and painting and trying to, like, listen and, like, pick out things that you didn't necessarily get from somewhere, just picturing a sound or a feeling that you like?
Well, I dropped the painting thing that I went through because I realized that wasn't gonna sustain me. You know, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Like, be like Billy Drews or Jane Ira Bloom or something, and be like, whoop, 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 and have everybody like, you know, yeah, man, have like Tom Rainey and Tony Malaby and those guys be like, you know. It reminds me, one time I went to the Cornelia Street Cafe, and it was Paul Motion, Tony Malaby, Angelica Sanchez, Ben Monder, and I forget who was on bass. But this was so anti-jazz. This was noise, man. These guys were just up there. They didn't even look like they were on a stage performing in front of people. They looked like they were in their living room. And I don't know what was going on. I dug it, because it was so subversive and it was crazy. You know, Paul Motion was just like, bam. And they were like, you know, just, it was so out. And I watched this table of corporate people who thought they were going for a night out of jazz. And I was watching them get fed up with the whole thing and just being like, what the hell is this? What's going on here? I thought you were taking us to a jazz club. I thought we were going on for jazz. This isn't jazz. What the fuck? And like, you know, and this guy finally got up and he went, hey, he went to the owner or the guy who books it, Tom Chang, this guitar player, and he went, this isn't jazz. and like, I was like, oh no, here we go. We want our money back. We just want to get out of here. This lady was like, yeah, I just want to get out of here. It was like she's being terrorized. Sure enough, these guys had no idea this was going on. And I just thought that was hilarious.
That is hilarious.
You know, and they left and they got their money back and they were like really upset.
Wow.
You know, because they thought, what did they think they were going to see? Grover Washington, probably? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah, but
maybe that's like a bit extreme of an example. But like, you know, like just like, I guess
it's the coffee. I don't know where I went. Why
that's a perfect story for the interview. But I mean, I guess I wasn't assuming that was your taste.
You want more coffee?
No, I'm good. Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Do you feel like transcribing has been more important to you than like? Can you ever just picture a sound or a feeling that you're going for, and that like comes across and you're playing organically, or do you feel like vocabulary is all built on the transcription?
I never I transcribed a few solos from beginning to end because I just had to, and they were usually one of those tenor players. But for the most part, I would take a line that just stunned me and I would transcribe it, and then it would find its way into my solos. And sometimes I would actually put them in other keys and stuff. And, or I would take this, like, thing that Joel Fromm does with fourths, and I would bring it into my playing by transcribing it and trying to move it into different keys, and which is hard work. I mean, which is very intricate work, as you know, if you want to do that. You know?
I've never transcribed Fromm, but yes.
But you can't just throw it into your playing, because it will sound like a lick that you've transcribed. You can't organically just put there's a way it'll show up amidst your playing somehow. It'll come up in there. Like,
you're trying to emulate the feeling of what they are making.
Yeah, more the feeling. So it'll show up and you'll be like, because when you're playing, you kind of split your mind in a way where you're improvising, but you're also aware of what you're doing, and you're thinking about something else too. And it's like,
you're only making $90 for this gig. That's what
and you're making those decisions within a microsecond.
Yeah.
And so it's like, within that microsecond, I'm sticking this Potter part of this lick I transcribed in 1998 in here right now, and it's going to be a part of this solo, and I'm going to work it in to make it sound good. I'll know that it's sort of manufactured, but nobody else will. You know.
Yeah.
But any sort of like pinnacle moment or something. No, there was just it was just thousands of tiny moments or observations of everything that comes into your playing. I mean, all of your experience, right? I mean, I sound like some you know, sort of spiritual teacher type guy or something with just experience.
Like I said, it's so hard to be objective about it, like where the milestones are and where it actually comes from. And it's like I feel like I make progress. I feel like I know what I like and I'm moving towards it. But there are times where I would like wonder, I guess, like what I can be objective about as far as like developing within a language or a style. You know what I mean? Like, is what I like relevant to the people like at academically a jazz school or the jam session? What they're hearing? Is it like, does it matter? Is it the same
No,
thing?
it doesn't matter.
Know. Yeah.
Does it feel as good to you as your favorite recordings feel to you? That's what matters. As far as I mean, I hear you asking what you're asking, and I hear you saying what you're saying, but I still, Charlie Parker playing Confirmation is still the beacon for me.
Yeah,
like that feeling.
Yeah.
So, I have transcribed that solo, but it's the feeling I get when I hear. I just as soon as the piano comes in and I hear him start, I was in tears the first time I heard that.
Wow.
And I still am. So I don't care about the rest of it, and I don't care if anybody else thinks about whatever they think about it. That's that feeling, because to me those beacons of truth. Not to be abstract about it, but that Benson playing anything. But Giblet Gravy with Ron Carter and or anything those people, it's like Stanley Turrentine. When I hear them play, Ray Charles, that's the feeling I want to go for.
Yeah, it is abstract. That's the thing. I feel like, I guess
it's the most concrete thing I know.
Yeah. Some people might not necessarily like at all what you like. I remember playing a Chris Potter solo for somebody that blew me away for years. It was like they were playing that George Shearing tune Conception in 7 on an Alex Sipiagin record.
Okay.
His solo just is stunning. Because it's in 7 and it's Conception and it's really up, and Jeff Tain Watts on drums and Scott Colley.
Yeah.
And Potter's solo is so amazingly creative and on the money and dealing with those changes perfectly in that time signature perfectly, and still manages to be spontaneous and fun and organic and everything you want from a solo. It's like, how do you do that? How do you, when you're amazed and astonished by something like that, how are you going to get there? You got to figure out a way to do it on your own. You're not going to do it by trying to duplicate or replicate what they did. It's just not going to work that way. You can take little, those little pearls or jewels in the sand and somehow try to use them. But I guess that's part of the fun or the hard part until it becomes your own kind of thing. And that's just a part of it. It's such a hard, playing jazz is not easy, and you have to have the right perspective and approach. It's got to be, you got to feel fresh and stuff. You got to, I heard back a gig that I thought I was playing well on the other night, and I was appalled, and I was thinking, why am I so uptight? That's very not relaxed. I felt like I was pushing and trying to, force my solo onto the audience, and until I loosened up later, and by the second set, I was finding a groove where I was, feeling a little bit more like, and then it sounded okay to me. There's so many elements involved in all that.
Well, you were saying you started to approach finding your voice around when you started doing the cruise ships. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, because I crapped out at the new school after a semester, and so then I had 4 semesters of college under my belt, and then I bummed around a little bit more. I ended up moving back upstate to Fishkill with my parents, and I thought, let me do another semester, but let me try state school this time, SUNY Purchase. So I went to SUNY Purchase.
I didn't know you went to Purchase.
I did for 1 semester, and in 2003. And Todd Coolman, out of the goodness of his crazy narcissistic iconoclastic heart, because he's this great player who's just a very challenging guy to deal with. He's not watching the scene. So no way, not a chance.
He started a podcast recently, didn't he?
The Cool Toddcast.
Yeah, he might be checking out the competition.
It could be.
And he's a male. 98% of our viewers.
Yep. I don't know. But I listened to some of those. Yeah, he had some interesting stories, you know. But I remember I auditioned for him, and he told me I played Old Milestones in front of him solo in front of his desk, and he said, "Okay, now I'll play it up a half step." So I tried to play Old Milestones up a half step, and I got to the bridge, and I went, "No." I stopped, and he went, okay, I think we can help you. And then he let me into the program. So I did a semester there, and there were fine musicians there. This was more of, now I was out of Manhattan. I was done like kind of boozing and being crazy and shit, and I was just kind of smoking weed and being cool and like reading books and things and just chilling out and hanging out with these guys. And one day, this tenor player, Adam Ash, who's still a very close friend of mine to this day. He's a great tenor player, but he went and got a degree in computer science, and now he's a software engineer / computer scientist.
Oh, so he's surviving.
He has a family, and he's, you know, very responsible.
Good for him, man.
And
is he still playing?
No, but he has his tenor, and he's always flirting with playing with it. But he's one of those guys that he wants to practice 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Because he wants it to be out of a certain caliber, and he can be at that certain caliber, and then some. Yeah. Great player, but it was just, you know, managing the
surviving.
The vagaries of life and having a family and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He likes to, I think, hang in his basement and play drums and flute and.
I have a drum set in my basement and a flute, so we can, I get it.
Yeah. And he was on the. I was sitting in the hallway one day. I wasn't feeling so great. I was a little depressed because it was like a dreary winter winter New York rather. Excuse me. And
at Purchase.
Yeah. And he was on the phone with the guy who books the cruise ships, and he said, "I can't do it, but Mike Dopazo's sitting here. He might want to do it." He's like, "You want to go out on the Carnival Glory for 2 months?" I was like. And he was like, "All right, Mike's gonna do it. Mike can do it." And I put him on the phone. He was like, "You want to come out on the Glory? It's a Caribbean run." And I know what the ships are. I did 1 week when I was, I think 19 or so, just a week. So I knew what it was, and a fill-in. And I never thought about going back, but I went out there, and you know, it was a 10-piece show band. You've done it, right?
Yeah, same thing.
You have to play the production review shows with the dancers.
Yep.
And I just thought I'd do my 2 months, make some bread. But funny thing happened when I got out there, all the guys in the band were motherfuckers. And I got along with them. Like, we became tight, where they were all great people.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and it was a breath. All of a sudden I could breathe. I was out in the Caribbean. I was on the payroll, and
you can get away without spending anything.
And get away without spending anything.
Yeah, you can bank it all.
I was on the beaches and blue water, and all these women and from all over the world and different, you know, jobs on the ship, and
they're Phil Woods fans.
Some of the guys in the 10-piece band, in the show band, knew were aware of jazz and great players.
Yeah.
And no, the girls weren't. They didn't know Phil Woods.
What?
Actually, you know, on one of those cruises when I went to like Portugal, I remember being in a cafe and these 2 Portuguese waitresses were arguing over whether it was Eric Dolphy or somebody else, like while they were serving espresso, and I was like, that is something you will never see in America.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You know, I was like, I think it's James Spalding, and they were like, he could be right. They were like, totally, really? Yes. I was like, I want to go home with you guys after your shift and listen to jazz.
Yeah, you think 98% male audience for us is bad? Eric Dolphy, forget about it.
Yeah, and drink Portuguese wine with you girls.
Yeah,
you know, it was amazing. And but anyway, I digress. But so on the ship, there also was a jazz trio.
Yeah, I did the same thing in a different bar, probably.
In a cigar bar.
Right, yep.
And I went over there thinking it was going to be some loungy schmucks.
Yeah.
And it was 3 badasses.
Yeah.
Piano player from Australia, drummer, still my good friend to this day, lives in Queens, Christian Coleman, the guy who I was sitting in with Ballenbeck. And a bass player from Atlanta, Chris Frickenbach. And they had a huge, there was no laptops or anything. They had a huge book of any standard or Wayne tune or whatever tune that you want to pull out, or anything obscure on whatever, like 3 phone books high. And they also wrote all their own tunes too. So So I went up there to sit in, and we became sort of like a quartet.
Yeah.
So on the ships, all of a sudden, nobody was judging me. I was probably the strongest, jazz soloist in the band. And I didn't have my doubles together yet, but, I got away with that for a while because of my jazz chops.
Mm-hmm.
And they were nice. And everybody had their strengths and weaknesses. And nobody got thrown overboard for that or anything, know. And so I could relax for the first time.
Yeah,
and
time.
I was,
time.
and so I would play these big band sets during the day, and then we'd play the shows at night, and then I'd go play with the jazz trio till 2 a.m.
Yep.
So I was playing from like 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. and really getting with the horn.
Yeah.
And that's when all of the confluence of influences like the Potters and the Fromms and the Keith Jarretts and the Matthew Ships and everybody I heard in Manhattan. I was always going to hear everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I started to feel like I could release the way I was feeling in a musical setting with total, non-judgment or anything, and it was just a place to explore. And because you just had people partying and passengers just vacationing.
Yeah.
And then it took me over to Europe for the first time, and I went on a European cruise ship for 9 months. And that was, to this day, probably the best time I've ever had.
Really?
It was that same trio was on it. There was a trombone player from Oklahoma in the show band who switched over to piano just because he had to get on that ship to be with his girlfriend, a dancer. So he it takes a lot of ability and talent to go and play those shows on piano as if you're a horn player. But he was doing it.
It takes even more talent ability to hang on to one of those dancers for that long.
Well, they are divorced and remarried.
I'm not laughing at him. I'm laughing with him.
No, I was just I was amazed at all the talent I saw out there.
Yeah.
That nobody knew about, and they came from everywhere. They came from...
You have time. There's not a lot of distractions unless with one of the dancers, but that was one of the things. Like I would play the show, and then I would just hang and practice on the stage after, And then,
right, yeah.
And then there was just time.
Yes, you could just sit there in your talks and continue to practice, and
yeah, totally. And just you kind of have this rocking back and forth.
Love that.
Yeah, it's very relaxing feel, and the water.
Sleep.
Yeah, and you didn't have to be up. It depended on the day, but you didn't I remember Friday nights was when one of the headliners would they would switch. The headliners would land wherever it was. I just remember we'd always have a rehearsal Friday morning.
Yeah,
and we landed in Cozumel on Friday, so we all just wanted to we had to do that to be able to enjoy the day. But there was time.
Right.
And you didn't make any food.
Mm-hmm.
There was food for you. So all your needs are met, and you have time to kind of shed and enjoy and check out what you're doing. So I get it.
Yep. And then you can go out in St. Martin and go to the casinos, or you can hit up some jet skis, or you can, people were putting things up their rear ends to bring them back on board and things like that.
I was like, wait a minute.
It was tough getting reeds before going back out.
Yes. And there was a lot of tomfoolery in Bali.
I watched a dude get arrested for drug. They left him where they found him. I mean, they left him in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Just for pot too.
Oh.
They brought dogs on the ships. I remember this, and scary as hell.
You had to. Well, that was a crapshoot.
Yeah, but that was terrible.
The original Brittany Griner.
Yeah. I guess we were varsity back then.
Well, I've heard they've changed a lot too. So what year is this that you're talking about?
2003.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. To 2008. Yeah.
You did it for 5 years?
No, not in succession, not concurrently necessarily.
Okay.
More like I'd go out for a few months, come back to New York, screw around, bum around, jam. And then they'd be like, "Hey, you want to come to Hawaii and Alaska? Who's on the band? These guys." Oh yeah,
wow,
definitely. But the 9-month thing in Europe was great because I got a real sense of like Italy and France and Croatia and I had all this time to explore that stuff and just get that European way of living that I wasn't privy to yet at all.
Yeah,
the siestas, the music that was playing, all of that Nessun Dorma vibe kind of thing going on. And streets of Naples and and I was hanging out with some very nice ladies, and you know, had a girlfriend, and I was actually in love with 2 dancers at the same time. I mean, like, this was an insane 9 months. I mean, and there was great music to be had.
Wow.
And there was great everything. And it wasn't all just a big decadent, like, you know, party. There was a lot of that, but we were also hitting the gym too, and like, taking advantage of the sauna, and there were personal trainers, and there were all the, you know, it was like you know, just a huge sort of potpourri of great stuff. And I was 26, so it was like, it was perfect for me, all this playing. And that's when I started to feel like I developed my sound. I did a record with those guys. I think I sent you one track. You probably didn't listen to it.
No, I listened to both of them.
Oh, okay.
Because you intimated that I might know who that person was.
Oh, that was another guy from Manhattan School of Music, Felipe, piano player from Chile.
There was a waltz.
That's the 10 Easy songs, right?
That 10 Easy Pieces was the Chilean guy from school. The guys from the Ships was this Nadia's Waltz was the tune.
Beautiful tune. Right. Yeah, I listened to both of those though. Yeah. This morning I listened.
Oh,
to them.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both on YouTube. The links you sent me. Yeah.
So that record we did because we had a vibe as a group.
It sounded like it.
Yeah. Did it? Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And, you know, eventually, you know, life got in the way and everything. But for that chunk of time, we were like in cahoots completely and like playing all the time.
Yeah, life off the ship has a funny way of kind of just slapping you around a little bit.
Yeah, but we were making our own recordings on the ship, like after hours when the bars shut down and stuff. And the trombone player who wrote music would come and, you know, we'd do quintet stuff. And I have all these recordings, bootlegs of us doing all this stuff.
Yeah, I have some cassettes sitting around from.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So eventually, you leave the Ships, which I did, but that time was fertile because I got to play, and I didn't feel any pressure from anything. So maybe that's the pinnacle, kind of. That was more of the fairy gold dust that.
Well, I mean,
help my playing?
So was it? After you found your voice, did it, I mean, you still have things you love to practice. Does it feel any more like you're closer to, like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, you don't feel like you still have stuff you're working on now, right? Like things that you like to work on, or did it kind of taper off where you didn't feel like you were searching for anything?
It's tapered off in a weird way where I'm only into music and jazz when I'm working, when I have gigs lined up. When I don't have gigs lined up, I find it hard to sit around and practice. I like to play sessions. So
yeah, you need the pressure of something coming, or I do anyway. I'm the same way. I need that something.
You need something to come up.
Yeah.
Something coming up to write a tune for and to practice and to get some material together that's not stale and do stuff. So when I moved back down to Westchester after I was exiled from Beacon 4 years ago, I re-upped with my friend Jason Devlin, who's a drummer from the Manhattan School of Music.
I know his name.
Yep. And bass player Scott Vergala, and we started playing sessions every day. Not every day, a lot during the week.
Okay.
So playing sessions is what gets the horn out of the case. I'm having trouble sometimes practicing just for the sake of it, unless I have gigs and stuff. And now I have a day job.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. That's the point that you get to. I mean, I just, especially after college, I feel like a lot of the practicing that I just feel like I get more out of is just like playing along with records and trying to listen more.
Playing
deeply.
with records is fun, yeah.
Like rather than, I mean, I still try to play some scale stuff. I mean, I definitely want to spend more, like I try to spend a lot of time with the metronome. But as far as, like, I feel like a lot of that music school, like heady type of stuff stopped making me feel like I was getting where I wanted to go.
You know whose books I really feel like bridge the gap between the creative part of it and kind of dissecting it and practicing the creative part of Bergonzi's books. I don't know if you have those or if you ever worked out. I'm pretty sure I probably told you guys about them in school, but
some of them,
yeah.
He's amazing. I love that guy's playing.
He's astounding.
Yeah.
And his books are really done in a creative way. Like they're fertile. Like I find that like you can just open any page and practice something the way he's first initially telling you how to practice it, and from there it kind of launches. I've always felt I have every one of those books, and I've always loved just practicing out of them. So I always find that like if I'm not bored, but I am better with pressure. If I have I have a gig on Saturday.
Yeah.
I definitely at Lydia's
with Tony and Jay.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I gotta come.
Oh well, yeah. Those guys are. Well, I love Jay Anderson. With episode 8 of the Mink and the Monk is Jay Anderson. I can't remember which.
Yes. Many episodes already?
You had a real luminary on. I don't know what I'm doing here. I didn't record 200 records for Steeplechase.
Yeah, he did a lot of Steeplechase. I absolutely adore Jay.
And he gave me a cake for my 100th record for a label.
Yeah, Jay is like he's exactly what I was talking about. Like one of the first real playing experiences sitting in at a club. It was in New Paltz, and it was like we went, and I never met Jay before, and somebody called "Have You Met Miss Jones?" and I was just glad I knew the tune, and it was astounding, and it was Jay Anderson and Jimmy Madison.
Oh, Jimmy,
yeah,
is he still around?
Yeah, he's up in this area. I mean, he's in K-Town.
I used to play with him.
Yeah, I saw him at the Falcon maybe 4 years ago with Adam Cote. Yeah,
Adam the man.
Adam's the man.
Adam Cote, you know him?
Well, yeah, I saw him play once with Matt, and he made me feel bad about myself.
Yeah, Adam is. Adam's amazing, man.
He would have a really angular.
He's a guy he can practice
Yeah.
regardless of what's coming up. Like that dude, if he has 6 hours free, it's not a problem.
Right, but he'll also play acoustic guitar and sing, and he'll also play piano. I mean, he's my go-to bass player.
The last time he was it here? He played. He was playing a Kurt Rosenwinkel piano solo.
Yeah, I'm sure he was
from that record.
I'm sure he was.
Yeah. Maybe he was at his house. Anyway, yeah.
Well, he's amazing.
He's amazing. He's got an amazing head. I met him when he was 18 and
really?
Or 17.
Oh,
yeah, because I taught at Poughkeepsie Day School, and he was a senior.
Okay, and I taught there too. But
did you? Yeah. After that must have been after I was there. I
2014ish.
Yeah, I left in 2005, I think. But that's where I met him. That's where I met Gabe Schneider, that guitarist. But with Adam, we just played.
Adam's a great.
We just played it, and that's that spirit of it. What we've been talking about, he's all about that.
Right. I had a gig coming up with him and Jason at Quinn's in Beacon, which I don't know if you know that venue. Quinn's.
No.
It's a music venue in Beacon.
Last time I saw you was at Quinn's.
Right. You were playing with the Big Bang.
Was it Big Bang?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I thought I was sitting in at they had a session there.
I wasn't there.
We sat at a table and talked, but I don't know if we were on the gig together or if I was just sitting in at a session. But no, you were definitely there. This is 5 years ago.
Okay.
This was a while ago.
Okay.
Anyway,
why don't I remember you playing with the Big Bang there?
It might have been that night, hanging out afterwards. But I'm surprised you weren't on the gig, is what I'm saying.
Because I got exiled out of the Hudson Valley, and I just
you got exiled out of the entire Hudson Valley.
I say that to be funny. Is when I broke up from this relationship I was in.
Oh,
and then I moved to Westchester, and like my Hudson Valley music career ended. Because people just thought he's down in Mount Kisco now. He's not coming up for this.
We were 12 pieces played for the Door. So 90 sounds awesome to split because we were going home with like $12 to $20 each.
Well, be careful, Mr. Kopek's going to watch this.
Yeah, but I mean, we did, but it wasn't. I don't think he was pocketing the money. Just that we were 12 dudes. We'd get a growler of beer, and they'd feed us very well. That Keegan's, we had the Keegan's run was fantastic.
That was before my time.
That was right. We did the Brothers Barbecue. That was your time.
Yep, and the Falcon.
And I only did the Falcon. That was kind of when I wasn't exiled from the Hudson Valley, but those gigs were on nights that I was working. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the Brothers Barbecue, I did. We did that a lot. We did that a bunch. Yeah,
and that time Lavano walked in, and then Lavano walks in to the Brothers Barbecue in Montgomery, New York, and all of a sudden I hear Kopek go, "What the fuck happened in the sax section?" There was a change in the DNA in the room,
Yeah.
And I'm playing second tenor, and it's not even my main axe, and I have a crappy tenor and a crappy setup, and I was like, "Hey, Joe, how are you?"
What brings you out tonight?
I really love this record, and I was like, "I'm really an alto player, just so you know," because he was like, "It was nice to hear you," and I was like, I was like, I'm really.
You didn't really.
I was like, I'm really an alto player, and he goes, "Oh, you're living on alto, huh? You see, because the alto, if you're playing tenor and also alto, it'll give you something else to draw from." And he went into that mode, and I was like, "Yeah, I know that." I was like, I kind of know that already. I'm not. I like playing the tenor and the soprano and the alto. I'm hip to that, buddy. Let me pull this one now. Oh, because then it's like a magic 8-ball with him.
I remember hearing that he wasn't there long. If I remember correctly, but I don't think I even knew he was there.
Oh,
but okay. I do remember you guys getting yelled at.
Yeah, because everything just went downhill, man.
Yeah, I do kind of vaguely remember that, but I might have been just looking forward to the brisket.
Yeah. He was another one I forgot to mention that was instrumental in like seeing how somebody can play with such freedom
and force
and like a painter. That guy's painting.
Yeah, he's absolutely astounding.
And I heard,
Joe Lovano?
Yeah. Oh my God. When I heard From the Soul in his first Blue Note record with Petrucciani and Dave Holland and Ed Blackwell, I was like, what is this guy?
It was the Schofield record on Blue Note that floored me.
Meant to Be or Time on My Hands?
Time on My Hands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, but honestly, the revelation for me with him was I was playing a gig with his wife, and he sat in. And we played I Can't Get Started. And it was sitting right next to it, to hear the sound come out of the horn right next to you.
Yeah.
I was totally speechless after that. We played a couple of tunes, and then I went down to he was at the Vanguard the next week, and I went down and saw him. I'm forgetting who he was with, but it was his group. But just to hear him, one of those things that hearing them live was like, and standing next to you.
Wow.
To hear how creative he was, and how much force was coming out of.
I'm sure
it was amazing.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't sound loud on record, but and it's not that he was too loud, but it was incredible. It was an incredible sound that
I'm sure
that microphone simply just doesn't capture the same way as being next to the bell.
Wow, you could feel that power.
It was amazing.
Yeah, and one time I heard him play this solo, and he did some things I never heard anybody do before. He was playing like a rhythm changes, and he finished his solo before the end of the tune. I'm trying to figure. He concluded the logical idea that he was following, which normally would come at the end of the rhythm changes, but he did it like 4 bars before the end of the form in this way that I'd never heard before. It was so creative and like eloquent. It floored me.
Yeah.
I think it was even at the Falcon. I was just like, how did he do that? He crafted this solo in such a way to where he ended what he was doing before the final conclusion was supposed to be. He flipped all that on its ass, and it just left me dumbfounded. I was just like, that was the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life. And he did things like that.
Yeah,
he does things like that.
Incredibly brilliant human.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about Schofield too, like just to bring it full circle where we start talking. Like I don't have to think at all when I listen to John play, or those tunes are out of the 30 records or so that I've listened to a lot, it's just always music.
Yeah, and
when you hear him talk, it's always. Were you at the Falcon, the infamous night with Eddie? Were you at that gig?
No.
Oh, okay, it's all right. But to hear him play, he was playing with Eddie Deal. He was sitting in with Eddie Deal's band, which was Adam Nussbaum on drums, and just the bass player's name's eluding me. It'll come to me. But anyway,
not Dennis Irwin or something.
No. It was. Lou Pappas. It was Eddie's. It was Eddie's gig.
Oh, cool.
So it was.
I know Lou.
Yeah, Lou's. I haven't seen him in a while. Is he still in the area?
I think so.
He's not exiled.
No.
Okay. Can't
exile Lou.
No, Lou's wonderful. One of my favorite bass players. But to hear John just play he was sitting in, so Eddie called all the tunes, and to hear John just go through a night of standards was just as exciting to hear him go through anything else.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
It was amazing. It was absolutely. It was really a revelation to hear him just play tunes.
Wow.
Yeah, Stella and Wine and Roses, like just pretty straight ahead, just tunes, and absolutely amazing.
Damn.
Yeah, so there's another guy who's just capable of anything, but he's always capable of just making incredible music. Just, Lovano's the same way. It's like they're just amazing spirits at that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if either one of them had a cruise ship run though. I don't know if they were doing that. We were.
Well, you did ask me about what got me booted off one.
I did ask you that, and I didn't know if we were going to talk about that.
Sure. So there was this show called Rock Down Broadway, and I was playing tenor on this contract, and I was really into the tenor for some reason. Well, because I was playing tenor, and I kind of forgot about the alto for the 4 months I was there. So I had to play the show Rock Down Broadway, and there was this section where you got to actually go out from under the pit and go up onto the stage, onto the stairwell, and play this. It was like a 6/8 kind of introduction to a tune. I forget what it's called, like Smokey Joe's Cafe or something.
Okay.
So it was like this. The band would come in with ba-da-ba-doo-da, and the tenor player would have to go ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, and then ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, and then it's this whole thing, and then you end up walking through the stage, through the dancer choreography. You step on this little rickety block as the pit comes up for this big climax, and then the pit goes back down with you still blowing, and then on to the next piece of
Gotcha.
the play of the thing. Well, I did it flawlessly for a few months. This particular day, we were out in the Bahamas, and I think we had a long night the previous night playing Texas Hold'em with the Casino Boys.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Which was what we would do.
Usually Scottish gentlemen. Were they Scots?
Brits usually.
Brits, yeah.
And we were playing poker, and it got real out of hand, like till like 6 a.m. or something, and there was a lot of booze. So we were playing poker, and $100 hands and stuff. I was up 1,000. I was down 1,000. Everything was cash back then. Yeah. And so we finally called it a night, but somehow I couldn't go to sleep. I couldn't squeeze down. I was like,
yeah.
I was all excited. So I kind of kept going. And I went out to the Bahamas and had some lunch and more drinks and stuff like that. And some of my friends could already see something at the sun with I wasn't pulling the strings necessarily, something else was.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things. Got away from me that time. And by the time I got back to the show, I was still rocking and rolling. As far as I was concerned, everything looked great and normal, but I don't know that I
Are you up
normal.
like 30 hours at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought I could breeze my way through Rock Down Broadway. So that day, one of the comedians gave me, well, not that day, a few days before, the comedians used to get screeners for all the movies that were coming out. Yeah. So it was the year that There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men came out.
Saw both of them in the movie theater here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got them on the shift from the comedians and DVDs. And so, like everybody else, I was blown away by that line, "I drink your milkshake." Daniel the you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly.
Oh, There Will Be Blood?
No, I've heard about it. Would like to see it. But.
Yeah, it's one of those movies.
I'm trying to. What's the boy's name he's talking to?
Eli.
Yeah.
So I was taken with that. I drink your milkshake.
Yeah.
And it found its way into the culture. They were like doing it on Saturday Night Live and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty what's a benign way of saying?
You were channeling Daniel Day?
Yeah, I was a little buzzed.
Oh,
yeah. There's nothing wrong with channeling. It was a couple of sheets. A couple of sheets.
Yes.
And so, the second show,
it's 2 shows?
Yeah.
Oh.
So that it kept flowing and stuff. And I kept myself together because I was young enough to. And then I went up on that stairwell. And the band went ba-da-ba-da-da, and I went shabba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, and then they went ba-da-ba-da-da, and I took the microphone and I went I drink your milkshake. I drink it up. Blah, 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 blah. Like really loud and perfectly in time. You know, and there was like a hush in this Palladium theater, and
they hadn't seen the movie yet. So this made no sense to them.
Probably not.
Yeah.
The dancers were looking at me like I just ruined their whole career, and because this is like $1 million production show with lights and sparks and stuff.
Yeah.
And then
lights and sparks.
Yeah,
that's how you know it was good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I made my way down to the pit, and when the pit went down, the band was supposed to start up the next tune, and I noticed that there was no sound, and I looked around, and nobody was playing because they were laughing so hard. Nobody could play the next piece.
And is this all on a click?
Yeah. And it was like with Jesus Christ Superstar. It was the next one or something, and they were just, because I didn't realize it was going to be that loud, and I think my voice was so boomy. I had the oil man in my voice. I drink your... I really had it, man.
Yeah, I could tell.
And I drink it up. You know, I really went for it.
Did you have a pork chop in your... Because wasn't he eating a pork chop while he was eating some kind of
He was eating some kind of piece of meat.
Yeah.
But no, I had my tenor. and the clip-on mic. And so they booted me off the next day for that little stunt.
That was a fireable offense.
Yes. Well, they drink tested me. Yeah.
How do they? Oh, you mean they gave you a breathalyzer?
Yeah.
A blood alcohol test.
Yeah.
That evening.
Mm-hmm. So,
You know what you blew?
No.
Oh, okay. But it was enough to get the boot?
Yeah.
Too many milkshakes.
Plus the little stunt. Yeah.
Plus the stunt.
Yeah.
It's legendary.
That is legendary.
It was. Well, my girlfriend wasn't too thrilled.
Your girlfriends are never thrilled with a lot of your actions. It seems like.
I suppose not. No. You're still friends with some of them.
Yeah,
it's more thrilling in retrospect.
Even my last girlfriend didn't find even the story funny.
I mean, honestly, I would. I'm just jealous that I wasn't in the band. I would have loved to have seen this live.
Yeah,
Could they see you from the stage, or did they just hear you in the monitor?
Yeah, they could see me. I was fully in the show, and you know, so that sort of ended my carnival days. I did a few more cruise lines afterwards, here and there.
Oh, so you didn't get blacklisted?
No, I think I did, but I talked my way out of it.
Okay.
They said there's a triple when I had to go back on a ship because I wanted to go to Australia and Japan.
Yeah.
And I went on Princess in 2010.
Okay.
Took a little break, and it was Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Vietnam, Cambodia.
Amazing.
And it was a whole new set of cool musicians I met, and that was a good one too.
Nice.
It was 4 months there. They were like, "There's a XXX on your name in our file. What happened there?" And I just made up a ludicrous story. I just said,
"Wait, you couldn't give him the ludicrous story, or you like?"
I just said, "Well, I was butting heads with the musical director, who I didn't think was very sane at the time, and I thought I left of my own volition." I don't know why there's a XXX in there. No hard feelings if you don't want me for the gig. I don't know why that's in there, but I really had kind of a crisis that I had to get home for, and I also wasn't having a great time with this insane musical director, if you really want to know the truth. I totally lied. I was a great liar. I mean, I was probably drinking, so it was like, when you're drinking, you're a liar, man. I mean, so you can lie great, man.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, well, it's kind of an emergency. We really need an alto player here." And I'm like, why? What's the emergency? And they were like, "Well, the Serbian alto player did a face plant on the bandstand during a show the other night." And I was like, what a jerk. You know? Yeah, we used to have such little respect for the dancers. You know, in a $1 million show with Sparks.
And not even a good story. Just face plant.
Yeah, he just did a face plant. So they said, "All right, well, you know, we believe you," or whatever. They sent me a contract, and you know, it was cool, and went overseas again, and you know, the Serbian guy left all his clothes in them.
Really?
There were all these vests and ties there, and I was like, "This must be the face planter stuff here." So, you know, I put
Did it fit?
Yeah, it fit me.
Nice.
I wore his vest around.
Nice. Dude, I love that story.
Yeah, and it was funny because the port that I went back to was the port I got fired from.
Oh, wow.
It was Lisbon, Portugal. So I went to the same port that I just left, and I was upset when I left the first time. I was wishing I hadn't done that.
Oh, so you got a second chance.
I was like a total second chance.
Did you meet those same women who were talking about alto players?
No. I think I just hung around the port and drank beer at the local McDonald's. And
get beer at the Oh, right, Europe. You can get beer at the McDonald's.
Yeah, and then I was like, new lease. I got a 4-month contract here. And, so everything went smoothly.
Beautiful. It was totally worth it. That's a legendary story.
Is it? Okay.
No, I mean, honestly, like I never heard it before.
Why, T told it to you?
No, man. The tenor player with the Steve Maglio, you told me to say hi to him.
Dan Pearson. Oh, because I think I went and crashed at his pad after that for a while.
Okay.
Because I didn't know where to go because I got tossed.
Yep.
I think I stayed at Dan's in Manhattan for a little while.
Okay.
And then I went on the next one.
I see him on all the big band ones that we do. He's usually in that band.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was funny because I told him we were in Delaware in August and on that gig, and you said we were talking on the way down.
Yeah.
I think we had the idea to do this on that phone call, right?
Right.
And you said, say hello. And I said hello. And you said you weren't sure what his...
Yeah, because we had a falling out.
Yeah.
We had a dumb, argument.
Uh-huh.
And then we just didn't... We were like little kids, didn't talk to each other for a little while.
Yeah.
He said something I didn't like, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, that's offensive. And I was like, well, fuck you, man. And he's like, well, fuck you, good riddance. And I was like, we're like little kids, a guy that I've known since I was 13, And now we're friends again.
Yeah, cool. You told me to tell him hi, and I did. And then he's like, he just goes into that story.
Okay. I thought T told you that story.
No, did. But he wasn't saying it in a bad way. It was sort of like the legend of the,
It's pretty punk rock.
It was pretty awesome.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how complimentary it is for my reputation because you don't find like the Okazakis of the world pulling stunts like that.
I think that says more about the Okazakis in the world.
He's not watching this. There's no way he's watching this.
You don't know. He might be. He might be stalking. I don't know.
He might love your playing.
He might be waiting for the invite.
He might be.
Get the Mink and the Monk bump.
Yeah,
it could be.
It happens.
We might get really popular,
or you might
soon.
be banned from every cruise ship, depending on who's watching.
And every podcast.
And every podcast. No, it was wonderful to have you on the podcast. Right. And I would have loved to have been a bandmate during that, whatever you want to call that. I will cherish that. The thought of what that was like live.
Well, getting the 6 o'clock knock in the morning was not to be cherished.
No. Did you stay up through the night, or did you finally crash?
Oh, I crashed.
Okay.
I didn't see anything wrong with what I did. I thought it was hilarious. And then my girlfriend woke me up at 6 a.m. and I was like, what's all that ruckus and fuss? And
your ride's here.
Yep. Pretty much.
Where was this? This was in Europe.
Yeah.
And they just left you where they found you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you were responsible to get home?
Yeah. Of course.
And your girlfriend stayed on the ship.
Oh yeah.
She didn't love you that much.
No, she was very upset. I remember the drummer Christian, he kind of came around and just kind of vibed me, gave me this look like, you idiot. A guy who'd been very close to getting sacked himself, but never actually did like I did. And he handed me a couple of $100.
Oh.
Which was really nice of him. And he didn't say anything. Like the drummer from the jazz trio.
Yeah.
He gave me that look like, and then he just walked out. Here, you might need this, and you're an idiot.
And you flew home.
Yeah.
You were able to afford a plane ticket home.
Well, yeah, I had oodles of cash, man.
Did you? Oh, okay. No, I didn't know how well you were doing.
It wouldn't make for a good story if I was left high and dry on a pier.
I've seen that happen too. Like I said, that guy got caught with not a lot of pot, but the German Shepherd sat down outside his room, and they barge in and they arrest you in Jamaica and leave you there. And they tell you when you board the ship, don't. Cocaine was big in those ports. Mm-hmm. Don't do it. They basically were like, we'll leave you where we found you.
Nobody followed those rules on the ships. Cocaine was huge on the ships.
Really?
Yeah. What?
Yeah, well, I took them seriously with those. Not that I was looking to buy cocaine in the port in Jamaica, but it was. I'm sure you'd be lucky if it was actual cocaine by the time they could see you're getting off a ship, and that's when you're accosted by everybody there. Anyway, they will arrest you and throw you in it's just not the thought of that was not something I was.
We all did it anyway. Dancers, girls with pen caps, and you wouldn't believe what they came up with.
I would actually. I did the most horrible things you could do physically to your body. Dancers were doing those things. Like they had all the worst habits I had ever seen. Like worse than the musicians. Yeah, way worse. The smoking and drinking. It's like, and they look like Greek gods and goddesses.
Yeah, because they would work it all out at the rehearsal. They would have their rehearsal from like 12 to 2 and sweat it all out. And
yep. And then you ruined it all by quoting
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Well, he could afford to get out of that situation because he nailed it for 2 months before that.
Yeah, that didn't really hold any weight.
No, that's why he had the money to get home.
Oh yeah, yeah, I had the money, man.
Beautiful. I wish I was there. I find that's as good a note to end on as any, unless you have some questions that you didn't.
No, I just answered. We're here joking around, and Brad's actually has like serious musical questions.
I wanted to make sure that you were,
which it's hard to say about jazz music. It's not an easy. Would you say it's not like an easy art form to deliver the goods all the time?
It's hard if your survival depends on you to it's a very difficult. The arts in general in the United States, I can't speak to other countries, but you are completely severed and you have to completely make your own existence. So when you were talking about $90 split between a trio, quartet,
even worse.
So $23.50 roughly each, right? Roughly, or 22. Whatever works out. When I would play in Harlem, it was $60. We played 10 to 4, and I spent $35 to take a cab home at 4:30 in the morning because I didn't want to get on the A train on 125th and take it to 207th with with an amp and a guitar. I just didn't. I don't know. I didn't like riding the train that late with
who does
with a couple $1,000 in equipment. But so I don't even know if I broke even on those gigs. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
The joy that I felt playing is priceless. Yep. But there comes a point where you have to. I was a little bit further in the hole every month. So that part doesn't. When it comes to playing jazz or any kind of music, it's hard to survive. So it's hard to. It's life is not pleasant when you're constantly struggling.
Right.
And behind that 8 ball more and more each month.
That's exactly right, because you can be having as much fun on these bandstands and dealing with music and everything, but your life situation is filled with so much unhappiness over trying to meet the demands of bills and stuff. It really gets in the way.
And that was when New York was much cheaper than it is now.
Yeah, I know. I've heard all the stories about guys in the 70s, and their rent was $150 a month, and the gigs pay the same as they do now.
Yeah, the gigs in the 70s. So I used to talk to Frank Luther about this. I don't know if you know him, the bass player. He lives in Woodstock.
No.
He played with in the 70s or 60s was with Chet Baker's band, and T and I used to go over to his house and just play. Great bass player. But he said that he would play 5-6 nights a week, and each gig paid $150, and this was in the late 70s. Now we're splitting 90 for. It's just hard, It's hard to. So to answer that question, I can't. It was too upsetting to try to survive that way. I'm not built for that.
Me neither.
I'm not built to be that broken on the edge. I can't do it.
I know. I just got my act together. I'm a teacher assistant at an elementary school.
Awesome.
So I'm doing that, 5 days a week, and it took me a year to get certified and a bunch of courses and an exam and get familiar with that whole field. And I landed a gig in Connecticut, and the salary is actually more lucrative as what my idea of lucrative is than anything I've ever had before.
Yeah.
Plus it comes with job security.
Yeah.
And I'm 43. I was looking for something like this.
Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of over the private music school teaching kids how to play Sicilian and Allegro for their Nismuth thing.
I did that at PDS. Just like it seems like we had exactly the same things. I was just slightly, because I'm older, slightly but the same footsteps, it seems like.
Yeah, grinding it out on gigs and private music schools where, I mean, I thought, let's try to, you know, make things a little less, you know, difficult, and it's working right now, you know.
Beautiful. The moment for me that really scared me the deep, like it didn't, I was in my 20s, so you don't really get, it's just the way of life when you're trying to survive. But the banking crisis in '08, which wasn't a crisis for the scumbags that robbed everybody, but for the rest of us.
Yep. I remember.
And everything that I had worked for, I was doing however many gigs a year, maybe 125, 150 gigs a year. And I had about 15 students a week. And in like 3 months time, gone. And it was all cash, you know, like whatever it was. You added it all together and it was enough. But when it all fell apart, you realize, like, I have nothing. There was no, it doesn't matter that I built up a stable, a studio of students and that I had all these gigs. The gigs stopped and this lesson stopped. And that was the most, that's when it was right around there I started getting ready to do a master's degree.
Right. Around then?
It's about the idea of it. And then it took me, and then I did a couple different adjunct teaching jobs, and then I met Brad at that adjunct teaching job. And then I knew that I couldn't, I do love teaching, but I knew that I couldn't survive doing adjunct work. So I knew that in order to get a more permanent position, you got to have at least a master's degree, which is why at 43, I enrolled for a master's program, which was an awkward feeling, to say the least. Yeah,
but you blew through it with aplomb, I'm sure.
I'm except for that one, except for the story. That was that was a terrible day. That was day one.
Yes,
that was literally day one, fall, first day of classes.
Oh, was it?
That was like the first. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a rough way to. Every worst nightmare feeling that you could possibly have came true.
Wow.
in 3 minutes.
I know about it secondhand.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we could certainly go through that story, but that might be tag on another.
That's okay. I think I know it.
Yeah, I think you know it.
Yeah.
But it was same thing. Now I can breathe. So doing a trio gig, I don't really, for the gigs that I really want to do, I don't even care what the money is.
Me neither.
And I'm very happy to do those gigs, and love to. I'm gonna play with Jay Anderson and Tony Jefferson for 3 hours on Saturday,
and that's gonna be great because they're both amazing,
and it's just fun. And I don't have to worry about the I don't even, if I'm being honest, I don't know what it pays.
Right, and I've never heard Tony and Jay play.
Oh,
so that's got to be something heavy.
Yeah, well, we made a record. I'll give you some of it.
Oh, I don't have it.
I never published it, but it's I have 12 takes, 12 tracks of them.
I got to hear that.
Sure. Good. Yeah. But yeah, I don't have to, when I don't have to think about that, I enjoy the moment.
Well, that's going to be this Saturday?
Yeah.
I got to come.
Well, it would be great to see you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
By the time this airs, it'll already be over.
Yeah.
But yes.
Soon we get it out.
Yeah, this will come out, I think, in June 2023. Yeah, we like to stay on top of it here.
Oh, okay. I'll watch out for it.
No, it'll be out in 2 weeks probably. It takes us time to turn it around and whatever.
Are you going to get rid of some of the
no, it's
less
all
desirable?
Whatever you want.
It's all, no, if there's anything
I'm the least desirable part.
Yeah,
you can crop it. But no, it really is all informative, and like I was trying to say is that even though I see the path, there is so much subjectivity to it that having conversations like this clears up. I feel like every time I talk to Matt, I feel like some of the best lessons I've had when I actually took some guitar lessons with Matt.
Oh, right.
Just for the hell of it, when I was in college, I feel like the talking was honestly more beneficial than the guitar playing, and I feel like a lot of that is just finding where it's okay to break out of like what's technically correct.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing about music, even just thinking about it.
Yeah, and I'll tie this whole thing in. The people that I love the most is to hang, where you can hang, and like I grew up with that. My lessons with my first guitar teachers, and even David Berkman and Bruce Barth and Jack Wilkins. Like Jack Wilkins and my father played together like when they were younger. So when we hung out, we just played tunes and talked. Like it wasn't, there was no competitive thing, and it was all just, what tune you want to play? That's all. And then if I didn't know it, Jack would play it and I would learn it from him, or Eddie would play it and I would learn it from them. And that's how it was. We were joined. Yep. There was a camaraderie. There was a kinship.
Yeah, it's essential.
And I thrive on that. And when it's this thing where you're trying, like when you told me that, now what are you going to do, deposit? Like, that's terrible. That doesn't sound fun.
No, that day I did not want to open a restaurant with Robert Glasper and Reggie Workman. You know?
Yeah. I remember I was playing in an ensemble that Dwayne Broadnax was running. Do you know him, the drummer? No. Great drummer, Dwayne Cook Broadnax. And he did this thing on the ride cymbal that screwed us all up, and we were like, what just happened? And then he stopped and he took the time to explain what it was, and that it was something that we could hear Tony Williams do, where you took the triplet and made the triplet a quarter note where you built your ride pattern on, so it sounds like you're slowing everything down. But he explained it to us and took the time, and then we spent the whole time him doing that to us until we felt like it was more natural and we could hang with it. But it was like a learning thing. It was incredible to hear. Wow. Yours doesn't sound, yours sounds horrible. I would have walked home feeling so bad about myself after that.
I don't remember how I felt. I just remember being like, wow, I was more in awe of what that guy was doing behind the drum set.
Okay, cool.
You know?
Yeah.
I probably went off onto the next thing sort of unscathed, actually. I was just... maybe in retrospect, it's a little bit weird.
Yeah,
talking about it, I was still. I don't know. I didn't care as much.
Yeah, I was very sensitive about stuff like that. So, like when I felt like somebody was undermining, I just I walked away.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, yeah.
I couldn't handle it.
Yeah,
it was kind of like it felt like it was like it was heartbreaking for me.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about people kidding around. I'm just, like when people were mean. I don't
like you do to me. Yeah.
But I'm smiling when I say these horrible things to you. No, but it's like I need to feel supported, and that there's I just need that.
Yeah, well, maybe you should throw a little more of that support his way sometime. You know?
I'm a ginger. I'm asking for it.
It's true.
Ginger. I'm kidding.
No, but it comes through, Matt. Hanging with you musically, that love for that kind of thing, and I'm glad we're making more episodes and doing a podcast together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk to you about that, but I'm going to be making some more episodes, but you're going to be home. I'll send you the link when I
love it.
Yeah,
love it.
No, I just want to play and have fun.
Yeah,
likewise.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, if that's where we're going to wrap it. It's been a pleasure meeting and talking to you, Mike.
Likewise, man.
And I hope I get to catch a show soon. I loved listening to your albums.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even
Peccadillo's Arm. We didn't even get to talk about, but I wanted us to plug it here.
Oh, it's all right.
And any other projects that you want people to look out for?
I'm playing with a pop band that's a very interesting group called the Nicotine Dolls, and I'm going to be playing with them next Tuesday night at Rockwood Music Hall.
Oh, cool.
And it's not jazz. The bass player who co-founded, I believe, the band is on Peccadillo's Arm and asked me to be a part of it, do some saxophone duties.
Awesome.
And I laid down a solo on their latest single last week.
Cool.
So the Nicotine Dolls, you know, the guy was on America's Got Talent and stuff like that.
Very cool.
It's not jazz, but I've got some work with them.
Nice.
And
so you'll be playing for crowds.
Yeah, and Peccadillo's on that record. I just wanted to do a record in that vein, original music, some odd time signatures. I just wanted to get that out of my system, and I had those original tunes I wanted to realize.
Yeah,
and I just had to have one record under my belt as a leader, for Christ's sake, at least one. And I had a great time making it, and those guys I had great camaraderie with.
Yeah.
And
what I was saying with Dave, we were going to play here before COVID.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I know Dave. I've played Dave Berger. I've played some gigs with him over the years, and he's a great guy.
Yeah, my good buddy. And so that was a lot of fun. And I got one review in Chronogram.
Oh, I read that review. That was a stellar review, though. Yeah, that was a very good review.
It was funny, and then I want to do another one, maybe with you, and I want to play tunes. I think this time.
Oh, standards.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And maybe some Charlie Parker and some blues.
Oh yeah, that sounds awesome.
Because you did that too. You did a funk record, and then you did more of a standards record, right?
Well, I did,
so to speak.
They were in this vein of standards. We only did one stand. You talk about the Jonathan Ball. Yeah, we did. There's 8 originals on there, but they're all in that late tonight. 50s. Yeah, they're all in that late 50s blue note.
You know what I mean?
Kind of. Yes, that, and I want the same reasons. I wanted to get that out, and then realized I can't do this again just because it's expensive,
right?
And it's a lot, and the 7 people that enjoyed it really enjoyed it. Thank you, Mom. And I don't mean that. That's fine. I'm very happy with that. I love that album. It was really the time I got to experience playing with Nussbaum and Jay, and to watch them work in the studio was absolutely magical.
Wow.
Because we just talked over each one. Mm-hmm. Jay looked at it, he corrected any mistakes immediately that I had made in the chart, and then said, Adam said, they would just make, hey, let's do this here. All right, let's do a take. And it was like being in arms of angels.
Pro is
unbelievable.
It was like having Martin Scorsese as your director.
It was really that cool. Like that's what it felt like. Yeah. And then we did it all in 2 4-hour sessions.
Oh, really?
Yep. That was it. We did when we just with the editing was a matter of which take do we take, and that was it. Mm-hmm. It was all live. It was amazing. But I'm so happy I got a chance to do that with those gentlemen. But I can't. I would love to make 2 or 3 more, but I can't afford to do that. So, So I'm glad I got to do that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for the same reason, it's funny. It's like we're 7 years behind. Like, what year did you do? If you tell me it was a 2018.
Yeah, 2017.
Yeah, it was 2011
so
when I did this.
Like,
we were like literally like doing the same things for the same reasons.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we pressed it in 2013, but I think we did it in 2012.
Okay.
But I mean, it's funny. We're for the same reasons.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
A lot in common.
Yeah.
We don't want to piss him off and start like, scratching each other's backs too much. He's gonna get upset.
Is anybody else thinking about the wolf in Pulp Fiction?
Let's not start sucking each other's dicks. Yep.
Yeah.
That's good old Harvey Keitel.
Good old Harvey Keitel.
As much as a hero as any of the other guys.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Yes. We there?
Yep.
There.
I'm having a good time.
I'm having a great time. But these are all great notes to end on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you again. Oh, last note, weirdest note. First thing I noticed when you walked in here, the pattern of that button-up shirt is the exact pattern of like my first childhood like blanket. So weird. It weirds me out that that's your shirt.
You really want to end on that?
Yeah. It's
Thanks.
There's no useful way for me to bring that up.
That's terrific, man.
Do you mind if Brad just curls up on your chest and has a little nap?
You would feel the same.
You were giving us shit before? Oh my god.
At least we kept it to music, you sick bastard.
Yeah, okay. Well.
Oh, perfect note to end on.
All right.
Thank you so much, Mike.
My pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
We always do this like director's thing. So on cue, we're gonna mess it up. Maybe not. Anyway, till we meet again.
Okay.
Thank you.